Have a report on any action in closed session?
Sure. So on item 2.2, it was motioned by Board Member Paoli and seconded by Board Member Munoz and approved by a vote of 4-0 with 1 absent to approve 5 certificated leaves and 1 classified leave of absence. No other action was taken.
Thank you. And moving on to approval of the agenda. Are there any changes that we need to make? Any changes anyone wants to make on the board? No? Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Perfect. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye, thank you. Okay, any public comment on non-agenda items? Okay. And with that, we'll move on to our patriotic exercise.
Yeah, if I could just have everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. Moving on to item number
No, that was me.
5. Joe's trying to get out of the meeting. Moving on to item number 5, acknowledgements. Before Superintendent, you go, we are missing a member of the board this evening. Just some personal things. We just want to send our hardest, warmest wishes out to Trustee Makala, and we are with you. And sorry you can't be with us tonight. So moving on to board acknowledgements.
So the board recognizes the month of April as Arab American Heritage Month, Autism Awareness Month, National Child Abuse Prevention Month, National Poetry Month, really emphasized in our agenda, and National or School Library Month. It's also Public School Volunteer Week was April 15th through the 19th. National Library Week is April 21st through the 27th, and Earth Day is on April 22nd. Though I think a lot of folks will be celebrating on Saturday. So, we also had donations, or a donation of $700 donated to by the Fort Bragg Middle School Parents Club to support the FBMS 6th grade field trip on the skunk train, which happened yesterday. So.
Perfect. Okay, moving on to item 6, communication. If anyone's received any official communication since the last meeting?
None.
I can't remember.
Oh, I did receive communication that our second interim was accepted and approved. So.
Wonderful. We can keep on teaching. Thanks.
Oh, we got a nice thank you note from Mary.
Yes. So, yeah. Anything else? No? Okay. All right. Public comment on agenda items.
There's no
Okay, but I will read the disclosure. Individuals may address the board on agenda and non-agenda items during public comment and/or at the time they are under consideration by completing the speaker form provided on the table at the entrance and submitting to Renee Holes, administrative assistant. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual. Speakers will be chosen in random order. A timer will be set for 3 minutes. If you do not complete your comment when the timer rings, you may leave a written comment for the board's information. Each person may only speak once per agenda topic and is required to address the board from the podium. A total of 20 minutes public comment per topic will be allowed. In exceptional circumstances, the board may consider adjusting the amount of time allowed for public comment. Public comment cannot be acted upon or discussed by the board in accordance with the Brown Act. The board may request staff to respond orally at the meeting or at a future time. If you require translation service, please contact Renee Holes at the district office 72 hours in advance by phone or email. Regular meetings will be videoed and broadcasted on the FBUSD YouTube channel. Members of the public who wish to address the board may also submit public comments prior to the start of the meeting by emailing boardmeeting@fbusd.us. Staff will make all attempts to share and record any submissions received prior to or during the board meeting. However, depending on timing, late submissions may be provided to the board after the conclusion of the meeting. Comments are limited to 3 minutes each, which is approximately 390 words. And with that, there's no public comment. So, move on to reports.
All right, so our first report will be our legal counsel presentation. We have there's been a recent U.S. Supreme Court decision about First Amendment rights for our board members. So Jennifer Nix will do a presentation. I know that we've shared out some videos and things. You also have the printout of the presentation in front of you. So I asked her not to repeat everything that was shared in those videos, but to make herself available to do a brief presentation and to answer any questions that you may have.
Hi, Jennifer, can you hear us? Okay. Why don't you go ahead?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I'm sorry, you're stuck with me on the camera, but the entire board is here. We're missing Trustee Makala this evening, unfortunately, but everyone else is present, and they have in hand your printed handout for this presentation, so you're clear to go.
Okay, perfect. You'll have to tell me if they laugh at my jokes, I guess. I can hear it. Perfect. All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me tonight. I'm excited to actually get to bring a little bit of good news for once. A lot of times I'm just bringing the bad news. I know that some of you attended the CSBA webinar last week on the same topic. So I will give a shorter presentation, and then I know that longer one is available to watch if you're interested in more than that. The Supreme Court last month issued a decision in two cases, actually, O'Connor, Ratcliffe versus Garnier, which is a case that came out of California regarding 2 school board members, and then the Lidkey companion case, which is a case out of Michigan, I believe, regarding the city manager. Both of these cases dealt with public officials' social media pages and what they are allowed to do or not do on those social media pages under the First Amendment. Prior to this case, a lot of you had received training based on the O'Connor-Ratcliffe case from the 9th Circuit. And so this is a change in the law from that case. And under that case, it was a decision that all public officials were not allowed to block people or hide any comments on their public social media pages because those were considered public forums under under the First Amendment. This case is a real victory for school boards because it should give you a lot more freedom to speak online, to moderate your personal pages without having to worry about people spamming your pages with comments you don't like or being rude or just having to deal with people you don't want to deal with in your personal lives, which is great. The Supreme Court overruled that 9th Circuit decision. The decision was actually unanimous, which is surprising out of this court, and it was written by Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who actually had sat on a school board before going to the Supreme Court. So she's got some understanding of what you guys do. The decision found that a school board member only creates a public forum on their social media page when 2 criteria are met. First, they have to have the authority to speak on behalf of the district. And second, they have to be purporting to actually speak on behalf of the district. Typically, among school board members, the only person who has the authority to speak on behalf of the district is the superintendent. This would also apply to anyone else in the district who is considered a public official and has authority to speak on behalf of the district. So it probably extends to our superintendent as well, possibly some other high-level cabinet members. But the bottom line is that you as board members can now have your personal social media pages, and you can manage it as you see fit, blocking comments, blocking people entirely, turning on and off comments as you please, so long as you're not speaking on behalf of the district. and you have the authority to do that. Now, that authority to speak on behalf of the district would come from bylaws, and the typical CSBA bylaw does permit the board president to speak on behalf of the district. It would come from policy, possibly, that policy might allow the superintendent or other officials to speak on behalf of the district, or it could also come from long-standing practice. So even if you didn't have a bylaw that allowed the board president to speak on behalf of the district, if the board president had done that over and over again across a long period of time, they would be essentially granted the authority to speak on behalf of the district. Even then, the Supreme Court said it's a post-by-post analysis. So it's not only that the board president is granted the authority, but it's that they are actually intending to speak on behalf of the district. So, if the board president was just posting, go Lakers, and everybody wanted to be upset about that because we're obviously Warriors fans, that's not purporting to speak on behalf of the district. So they could block all of the Warriors fans from commenting on that post if they wanted to. What's an important thing to remember here is the court in the companion case actually stated that if you have a disclaimer on your social media site that you do not speak on behalf of the public entity, on behalf of the district, there will be a heavy presumption that you're not speaking on behalf of the board. Cannot overstate how important this is. What that means is that if you put a disclaimer on your social media site that says you are not speaking on behalf of the school district, then you will have a presumption that you are not doing so. Okay. In your materials, you have 3 different disclaimer options that could be used. One is short, if you have a character limit for your disclaimers. One is longer, and one is for a superintendent to use versus a school board member. So I really, really recommend that you put one of those on your public-facing social media pages so that you can take advantage of that presumption that the Supreme Court created in that Lemke case. So I mentioned that this probably applies to superintendents as well. The companion case, the Lemke case, dealt with a city manager whose role is much more akin to a superintendent, with the city council members being akin to the school board. In this case, that superintendent would be analogous to that case, and the 2-part test remains the same for the superintendent. But the superintendent has likely been given the authority to speak on behalf of the district, so those school-related social media posts are also going to create a public forum if they're discussing district business on their personal social media sites, right? Just a reminder that here in California, because of the Brown Act, you still can't talk to each other on social media. You can't like each other's posts, downvote each other's posts, comment on each other's posts. With anything regarding public business, again, you could comment, boo Lakers, go Warriors. That would be fine, but not with regard to district business. And we do recommend being pretty cautious there. 2 next steps I recommend. The first is that you review your bylaws and policies to be clear as to what board members and school administrators are authorized to speak on behalf of the district. And just make sure that those are correct and accurate with what you want them to be and with who you believe it is. And then the second thing is just to know that there will be another case on this. So the Supreme Court heard the appeal, overturned the Ninth Circuit, created a test for the Ninth Circuit to use. They will now send this back to the Ninth Circuit for the Ninth Circuit to look at the 2 school board members' social media posts and determine whether or not those were properly considered to be in violation of the First Amendment, or whether those posts are not in violation of the First Amendment. So you'll see another legal communication go out that once that case is decided with that information as well. It won't change the test, but it will give some information as to specifically how the Ninth Circuit looks at school board members in light of this new test. All right. Any questions?
Any questions?
I just have one clarifying question to ask. So if there is a member on the board that meets the two-part test, do you recommend that they put the disclaimer on each post, or is it sufficient enough just to put on their page?
The decision is written as it being sufficient on the page itself.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and then I think you could even also, on your post, you could say, I speak only on behalf of myself and not on behalf of the district, and here's my comment on something.
Okay.
You know, if it seemed like something where you
Sensitive.
might be considered to be speaking on behalf of the district.
Okay, any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us and enlightening us on this great news.
Yeah. Anytime, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your board meeting.
Thank you,
so
Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, bye.
Okay, moving on to item 8.2, general obligation funds, bond funds, construction project update. And Don was going to try and be here, but he's not. Oh, maybe he is here.
No, he's not.
He's not here. Okay.
He said he was going to be here in person.
Well, we miss you, Don.
So is he just late, or he's not coming?
I don't have any communication
gotcha.
on that.
'Cause we could,
Okay.
Well, I was hoping he would be here because I didn't prepare
Okay.
for this section.
Oh,
there he is.
I
All
was
right,
like,
there
oh
he
my
is.
goodness.
Can we do a drum roll?
Saved by the
Just in the nick of time, sir. You're up.
You're up.
perfect timing.
Oh, nice to see y'all. It's been a while. At any rate, let me go through it real quick. On this first one, the financials are probably, I mean, they're generally correct, but I need to catch up with Wendy on some expenditures since I've been kind of on a hiatus. Yeah, QKs, I'm thinking I don't have, I looked on Google, so take this one with a grain of salt, but we haven't had a lot of activity. We're mostly waiting for DSA to give us a approved plan so we can move forward. So why don't we go to the next slide? Okay. So DSA's been pretty slow at approving plans these days. QK submitted the plans on December 1st, and I actually submitted another district's plans on the same day. And it took for QKs to come back probably end of February, end of January, if I recall. No, actually, theirs took a little bit longer, I think. At any rate, they've been waiting and waiting on comments from DSA, because normally when you submit it, you don't get approval right away. They usually have a litany of questions or demands. You address that on the drawings, and then you resubmit, and they either buy into that or they have a couple other comments. So where we are right now with QK is they got the back check comments. That's the first round. They addressed them. They submitted them, I think last week, without reading my thing here. And they have it scheduled with DSA to review the back check comments, I think, next week. And at that point, we'll have a better idea when we get a permit to move forward. We can't start any construction until we have a permit. It's in contract law that you can't do that. But in the meantime, while we're waiting, because it's a lease back, we've given the plans that were given to DSA to QKA, to FRC, too many initials, to FRC, the contractor, to send out to subcontractors and get pricing, with the caveat that it's not a done deal because there are things out there that DSA may come back and requests that are going to cost money. To kind of counter that, in the proposal or in the GMP, we've factored in some allowances to cover these what-ifs. One of the big what-ifs that came back recently was that DSA wants an additional fire hydrant on the campus to serve the new building. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but that's pretty expensive. And well, at first we kind of blew it off. We already got fire service here. It's no big deal. But the fire line that was reported on the as-built plans is smaller than is was stated to be larger than it actually is, so this changed. And that's why we kind of bumped up the GMP at the very last minute. They're gonna have to run pipe to the street. It could get pretty expensive. I think we're carrying an allowance of 150,000 for the new building, not all of it for the fire hydrant, but before that news, we were carrying 75,000 allowance for each, the modernization, and 75 for the new building, just for what's gonna come and bite us when the DSA finally gives us a permit, because they always have something. Not that we're gonna spend the whole allowance, but it's there so we don't have to come back and say, gee whiz, we're a little short here. So that's what that's for. So what we have for you here is a GMP that's to give them the approval to move forward so we can start procuring items. We can't start construction, but they can start procuring, because some of these items, have 6, 8, 10-week lead items. So if we could order it now, it just gives us a leg up. So when we go to the next slide and see what I have here. Oh, there's a GMP. So the other good news, if you go to the second, that's just a tally. If you go to the second, the next page, it's going to have the bottom line. Oh, not the next one, sorry. It's longer than I remember. Okay, so if you recall, when we did phase 1, the GMP came in much higher than our budget, and we had to scramble and make it do. In part of the cost estimator QK hired, in this estimate, they didn't want to get caught short, and they factored in about a little less than 8% geographic market condition factor in their estimate, and their estimate was 8.8 million with that factor. It's something that wasn't quantifiable, but it was just reflective of phase 1 kind of bids, because it just costs more to come out to Fort Bragg than a school that's right on the 101 corridor. And that's what that was trying to cover. So the good news is now that we got the GMP from FRC, it's actually 9.9 million, considerably less than the estimate. So which I'm feeling good about, because I don't think we ever had the money to cover the 8.8 without having Wendy do some magic somewhere else. So now I think we don't need the magic just yet. We're within our means with this 9.9, is what I'm saying, which is good news. And it so happened, if you did the math, it was roughly that fudge factor that they put in that burned them in phase 1. So it's encouraging on 2 fronts. It kind of matches their quantified estimate, and we're not having to scramble to find the difference between 9.9 and 11.8. So.
And about 1.5 is coming out of ELOC.
Okay,
Oh,
for the
thank you.
extra classrooms,
extra
because that's still going to happen now.
Yes.
Because we thought it wasn't going to happen,
Right, but we think
Well,
we've
as
got
long
it.
as DSA comes through and we're allowed to start putting shovels in the ground.
even though it's different. It's not, that portion's not bond money. Is that, because you're using ELOP money for
Correct,
that?
yes.
And I don't know if there's a time to, are you?
I think so.
sorry.
Is there any more? I think that's last of it.
That's it?
Okay.
So is there any way around the hydrant, since I do think we have wells on this property?
It's
That's
a
not-
fire flow calculation.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's hard to go up against a fire marshal.
Yeah,
State
I'm
fire
sure, because
marshal.
usually we have to deal with CDF.
Yeah. Although, I'll give
bigger
you
than
an anecdotal story. I'm bidding a job for Boonville, or I bid a job for Boonville. And I don't know if you guys know Louise, but she's the superintendent. I had to go to her and say, plan check comment was, we need sprinklers in these science rooms we're renovating. Yeah, which is fine. It's going to cost more money, but we don't have any water for these sprinklers because there is no fire line in Boonville. They're talking about creating one. So, I was kind of stuck. It's like, what do we, I was just, we're going to have to come up with a bunch of money to have big tanks and water and et cetera, et cetera. She leaned in on our assemblyman and a couple other people, and all of a sudden they had an alternative means. And I did some 2-hour radial wall and this and that, and it evaporated. That water issue evaporated. So there's occasionally a workaround, but those are far and few between.
Yeah, well, I just figured because most schools may not have a well at all, and I know we have high producing wells very
Yeah.
near. So to me, that why would we use, isn't that city water?
Yeah,
So I just didn't know if there
yeah.
was a way around that to save
Yeah, no,
$100,000.
everybody's got their code, the fire code, separate from the building code. And, the other time I got out of it was I did work in Potter Valley, which doesn't have any municipal water either. And I ended up having to write up a alternative means where they had helicopters flying to farm tanks or farm lakes or whatever, ponds or whatever, and I had the fire chief there buying in on it, who was right next door to the Potter Valley. So, but yeah, it's hard to do those.
That's extreme.
Yeah.
That's extreme.
Yeah.
And I think my experience with water tanks and that sort of thing, we're talking just as much money from a well side or from this.
Oh,
so-
yeah. Willits they
Yeah.
did that big tank, and now they don't need it because now the city,
Yeah.
they spent a whole bunch of money on Willits. Was that before? That was probably before you, or was it with you?
That was my first time in Willits, yeah, and it was about,
Okay.
I think we spent, even back then, 2012, like probably $400,000 on it.
This is
Yeah, these are
cheaper
big
than-
silos.
cheaper,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're giant
Just-
silos. Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot you had firsthand experience
Yeah.
on that one. Yeah. Ouch.
All right, any other questions for Dawn?
Alrighty. Well, good to see you all
So
again.
we're,
and,
I guess the question is, are we still on target to break ground this summer?
we're going to break ground this summer. I think we'll probably have the permit in 3 to 4 weeks. So maybe not at the start of the summer, but at least we'll be procuring items and see what we can finesse. But technically, we got to get the permit and have the IOR on board and all that, the inspector record. So
Maybe in May, we hear something?
Yeah.
Because you submitted it in December of '23, right?
I'm sorry.
You submitted in December of '23?
Yeah, December 1st. Yeah, I know the
Okay.
exact date because I submitted another project the same day. And
Gotcha.
yeah, I guess all the ESSER money is, needing to be spent and all that. So just DSA just pounded with permits review, and they
Gotcha.
not giving us a lot of latitude. You'd think they'd pick up the pace or kind of look a little more faster at things, but no.
Okay, so it looks like later on the agenda, we have this as a action item,
Yes.
Okay.
so.
You want me to wait around for that one?
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
we probably have reviewed it unless the board needs.
Oh, actually, I think I did have, but maybe Joe can answer it. There are some weird coding on there, and I didn't understand what it meant. Like, it says N03-1000 under slab vapor retarders.
Right, so if you look at on the left-hand
It's a
column, you'll see those numbers will appear. And if you follow that up, there's an actual price there.
Okay.
That includes all of those things that say in
Oh,
that-
okay, so
in
instead of
that
duplicating the
code.
cost, you've said that that's included in that
Yes.
first line item. Okay,
Yes.
gotcha. Thank you. That was it.
No, thank you. I hadn't-
Yeah, sure. It's a lot of money. I look closely.
Because I was thinking, I don't understand that in dollars. So what does that mean? But that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Gotcha.
It's
I
covered.
was just elated that we came in at 9.9 rather than 11.8, so beyond that.
Right, because otherwise, if there was no code in it, it would look like it was free,
Right.
per se, but it's covered. Okay, very good.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, Don.
And I'll drop you an email to confirm.
Pardon me?
I'll drop you an email to confirm the excellent.
Okay, perfect, thank you. I'll be seeing you guys more often now that we're getting geared up again. Thank you.
All right,
Thanks, Don.
item 8.3, student representative report.
So all the schools are coming back from spring break, so there is some going on, but not the most. At Noyo, there is a youth group expedition at Deep Valley Arts. This is their second expedition of the year. They had a retired chief from CAL FIRE come in on April 16th to teach them about the careers and then also about other things with the fire safety and other companies they could go into. They have been enjoying learning about podcasting and electronic music from 2 visiting experts. Christine and Gary will go with Mr. Aldridge to LA to receive the Model Schools Award on behalf of the Lighthouse CDS April 27th. And then they have mock interviews. They had them today, and they go tomorrow or I think actually today, to Sonoma State University. And then they are planning for their promotion on June 5th. And then at Redwood, they have had testing happening, and it will be happening for the next several weeks. They have their multilingual learners are having English skills assessed. This is done annually. Tomorrow, they have morning opening and coffee with the principal. This was rescheduled due to the spring carnival right before the break. They are also having a lot of field trips to Point Cabrillo and the Botanical Gardens. And they are very grateful to the Parents Club for funding these, for like the buses and then all that. Students in second grade have been enjoying swimming. They are also honoring the librarian in honor of the whole library week and Librarian Appreciation Day, which was 4/16. And then they also are having a Lunch Hero Day May 3rd, and so they will celebrate all of their lunch ladies' hard work and delicious meals. Then up at Dana Gray, they are also doing the CAS testing there. So a lot of testing going on. They had their site council meeting today at 4:30, and then they also have the ELAC meeting at Dana Gray at 10:30 on the 23rd. And then the fourth graders will be visiting the Botanical Gardens next week. And then Flockworks is putting on their annual Children's Day, where the Dana Gray students will go through a bunch of stations between 1:15 to 3:15, and then it will be open the rest of the day from 5 until 5:30 for community members and families to enjoy too. And then at the middle school, they have their 6th and 7th graders on field trips, which is super exciting, and soccer and softball teams have games scheduled. Mindful martial arts is ongoing there, as well as many of the schools. I have heard it's been going pretty well. CASP testing will begin next week, and then their Parents Club will sponsor a book fair for the week of April 29th. And then very exciting, the San Francisco Shakespeare Tour will perform As You Like It in May. And then for the high school, we also have some testing coming up. We have state testing, I believe, starting the 29th. We have ASB elections beginning, and same with re-electing Link Crew members. Sports are ongoing with lots of games scheduled. Tonight there is a dinner down at the harbor for the track team. And then, let's see, we are having our junior prom, well, the prom put on by the juniors, May 11th at the Casper Community Center. And then we are getting ready for AP testing and college class finals at the end of May. And that should be it.
I think you guys need a little bit more to do.
Just a little bit more.
Well, thank you.
I had a couple of, do you know the status of the parking spots?
For the prom?
Painting? No, the
Or the-
painting in the parking lot? Is that a project for next year?
Yeah, for the senior parking spot?
I guess it's seniors, yeah, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, we were going to do it for the second semester bit, but it does not seem we have gotten all of that, so
Yeah, time.
that will be pushed out to next year if we
Yeah.
can get everything put together, and then a way for payments and everyone to have a safe, like, the painting, so it will not be permanent, and so people
A lot
can
of
get their
pieces.
respect. Yeah, there's a lot to consider, and so we are working on all the little bits, but I don't think it'll happen this year.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking it was getting too late in the year to.
Yeah, and it sounds like we're only doing one of the parking lots.
Okay.
I think we're just doing
right,
the stadium
The
one.
north side. And then the career day, is that, it's happening in May, but is it in the classrooms or is it in the gym? Like, what's the format? Do you know? Or
Oh, I have not heard
maybe
about
that's,
that one.
oh, okay, like it's going to be, the classroom's going to be an industry. Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay. Okay, 8.4 Dana Gray Elementary highlights.
Hey everyone. Again, for all the people watching, it is a dress-up day at Dana Gray. It is a mix and match day. My garb explains that. So in the past, the presentations I prepared for you are a lot about the things happening on the playground or in the classroom. So I thought a different focus would be just kind of recent and current happenings that are going on at Dana Gray. So that we do something a little bit different. So this is just a cute kid. We start off with a happy face there. That's Ellie. He's a 4th grader. So one of the most recent things, we had the wonderful Link Crew kids come over. You know, we have the Pod Squad at Dana Gray, and so they come over, talk about what it is to be a leader, how, what their experience is, and then we had all of the 4th graders, the future Pod Squad leaders, to consider if they could be a Pod Squad leader, what does leadership look like? And then they ran a really big fun game with each classroom. They had the questions from the kids were so great. They were the Dana Gray, you know, when the high schoolers come in, they just go, they're just so excited to see them. So it was a really fun activity. It's the 2nd year we've done it since back from COVID. And the idea was to get them excited about applying to be a Pod Squad leader. And we had applications that then they could fill in, they go home to parents, etc. And then the bottom picture there is this year's Pod Squad group of our current 5th grade leaders. 5th grade, Mr. Naifong and Josue Bonzano, one of our special ed aides, have been working really hard this year in organizing tournaments between the 5th grade classes. So we've had baseball tournament, this is the kickball tournament, and a soccer tournament. Right now they're thick into kickball, so it's a very serious situation. I'll let you all know. And they're out there honing their skills during PE. The nice part is, you know, sometimes it's hard to think of things on the fly for your kids to do as a whole class for PE. So the nice part about the tournaments is they're all kind of participating and being, you know, using their gross motor skills to be better at the game. So it's been pretty fun. And really good opportunities for how to be a good winner and how to be a good loser. Recently, last week, right before the break, Flockworks sponsored a jellyfish craft night. It was after school from 4 to 6 in the main hall, and they provided all of the art supplies with the theme that we all be different, but in this school we all swim together. So they created little fish and jellyfish, and you can see some of them in the top picture. The jellyfish are hanging from the ceiling there. So it was wonderful. We had a pretty good turnout. It's the 2nd time they've done an activity in the evening. The first one was in October for Dia de los Muertos. We have clubs at Dana Gray this year. We have the Yarn Club, which is my favorite name ever because I thought it was the Crochet Club until they wanted to make sure I knew they also knit. So it's the Yarn Club. It's in the library in the mornings with Miss Price, and she's doing a wonderful job teaching them how to crochet and to knit, and it's a pretty fine motor situation. So they're very patient with themselves, and they're having a really good fun time learning together. The Kindness Club on the right there, or on the left there, is run by our school counselor, Erica Malsum. They meet every Tuesday morning, and their job is to spread kindness. They make little signs to remind people to be kind, and then when they see someone that isn't being kind, the goal is to say, let's talk about how we can be kind together. And they're doing a pretty good job. They're spreading kindness. Our amazing 5th grade teacher, Miss Green, has 2 clubs that she runs on Thursday mornings before school. One is the chess club and one is the drama club. The wonderful thing is that these are all grades. So it's really fun to have the kids kind of learn, especially learning chess together. And on rainy day recesses, that's the biggest thing. They want more chess boards and listening to the discussions about, I'm sorry, you can't make that move. That's not what this one's doing. So it's pretty fun. The drama club has 2 performances scheduled, so I'll let you know when that is. You can come by and swing by and see one of our performances. Of course, there's the wonderful field trips. These are from one of the jug handle trips that the 3rd grade meant. We also have the botanical gardens, like I think I mentioned last time, the Noyo field trip for the 5th grade is going to be happening. We had to postpone it because it was raining the last time it was scheduled, but that's going to be happening this year, so the 5th grade's really excited about it. And as as Lindy mentioned in her report with Lillian, thanks to the Parents Club, they really help out with all the busing and all the extra costs that go towards field trips. On Friday, the 26th, we'll have the Children's Day, also sponsored by Flockworks. This, the great part is they're going to have all of the kids at Dana Gray do a dance together. That's going to be fun in the gym. And so this is one of their practice sessions. All the girls have the beautiful skirts and the boys have the sombreros. And if in your leisure you want to click on the dance instruction, that's a little video of the teacher teaching them how to, do the butterfly with their skirts. It's really beautiful. And so that's going to be next Friday from 1:15 to 3:15. It's our kids go to different stations outside and they do different crafts and from different cultures and all different things happening. And then from 3:30 to 5:30, the community is invited to come and also bring the rest of the family to enjoy the same activities. So the dance is going to be happening at a specific time I should know, but if you want to know, I will let you know what time that actually happens and I'll communicate that to you so you can come see. That's going to be quite a sight to see with all the beautiful children movement. This is just a cute picture of us, some of our staff. One of our last staff dress-up days was Scrabble tiles, and so we all dressed in black. We had different groups coming up with different words. The 5th grade made a word, the 4th grade made a word, and if the kids could scramble the unscrambled letters and guess the word, then their name got put into a little drawing. And so this is our intervention team with our TOSA, Miss Denberg, and Miss Malsom, our school counselor. So that's it. Do you have any questions?
Any questions?
Besides dates for performances?
Yeah, if you could send out that schedule for that Friday.
I definitely will.
That'd be great.
And back to, let's see, open house,
Open house is on May 16th.
May 16th.
And we're going to be having the Dana Gray passport again this year. So we'll have the different stamped little situations for kids and their families
Nice.
to make their way around the school.
Perfect.
All right, thank
Lots
you
of
so
fun.
much. Okay,
Redwood on the same day, May 16th? Do you know that?
is Redwood on the same day, do you know, Ms. Alexander?
No, I don't think
Okay,
they are.
oh,
Okay.
good. Okay. Thank you.
All right, moving on, 8.5, Three River Charter School Spring Update. Ms. Morgan.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for having me. So I'm here to present our spring update. I was here in October, so these are things that have happened since the fall. And we can begin. I always like to start with our highlights and programs. This is our 5th and 6th grade class down in the harbor with the Noyo Center, working with some model whale bones where they went on a field trip. We've done a lot of field trips this year. I think you probably heard last time I was here, our 5th through 8th graders went to the Peak Environmental Education Camp up at McCarricker with a grant from the Mendocino Community Foundation, and that was amazing, sleepover camp. We've done trips with the Noyo Center for Marine Science. Our 3rd through 6th graders went to the Exploratorium in San Francisco, which was pretty fabulous. They also went to a performance at the Luther Burbank Center in Santa Rosa, and our 7th and 8th grade class went as well, our junior high class, and they toured 2 of the colleges down there when we were there. And we've done beach cleanups. The Hare Creek Beach is very close to our campus, so the older classes often walk down there. So here's some photos from our field trips. Next slide. Some events since the fall. We had a winter family dance and cultural potluck, which was a hit. We did it at the Lions Hall. There's a picture on the bottom there. So all of our families brought all kinds of food, and a student DJ'd, and we danced and ate, and it was a great winter event. We had our annual spelling bee recently, and a 1st grader was actually the school-wide winner. And then before spring break, we had our annual variety show and music concert at Cotton Auditorium, which was fabulous for the kids to be on the big stage with lights and sound. We had student MCs, they're pictured up in the top right-hand corner, who talked about each act. We had everything from beatboxing to ballet to recorders, and we had a special guest, Mr. Lang, who came back from his paternity break and surprised us on the stage. Looking ahead, the CASP testing is coming up. Starting the first week of May, we do a fun fair at the end of school each year where we get bounce houses, and it's during the school day, bubbles, all kinds of carnival games that the student council created, and that's coming up. And then we have an end of the year awards barbecue for all our families in the backyard and give out awards to all the students and recognition, so that's coming up. Along with our 8th grade promotion, which we're doing at City Hall this year on Main Street. So we're excited to try out that location, and probably lots more other events. We had a family STEAM night this year. I think it's the second year we've done that. It was really well attended. Each of the classrooms had STEAM-focused activities for folks to come through. And every year we do our own science fair. This year we evolved it to have students were able to qualify to go to the county science fair. So we had we used the same rubric that the county uses, and our 3rd through 8th grade students could qualify to go to the fair, and several of them did. And pictured on the next slide, we had 2 of our students got a merit award in their category, and 1 got 2nd place, so that was pretty neat. And myself and one of our other teachers went, and we were a judge. So a great new activity for this year. Our after-school program, Tides, is running strong with our ELOP funding. It really grew this year, and we've learned, what works, what doesn't work, and it's come a long way. We integrated our after-school sports with Tides. We do a lot of STEAM activities. They get snack. There's a lot of social, emotional activities. They get academic support, free play. Pictured in the center is our wrestling mats that we got last year that are also being used for tumbling class, which was a great winter alternative when we can't be outside. We don't have a gymnasium, so we transform the junior high classroom into an indoor PE space when we need to, and have the big kids move all the tables and pull out the mats. And then on the left, we were able to Sue Magoo, who's worked with the Noyo Center forever, works in our after-school program, and there was a marionette person in town with the Noyo Center, and he popped by our after-school program and did a performance, and that was really fabulous. And our music program's going strong. We have Friday electives. We also have crochet. I love the Yarn Club idea. That's a great name. One of our recent cross-age projects, we have big and little buddy classes. They get together, and we created paper flowers in tin can vases that are decorated, and next week our student council officers are going to bring them to the senior center to decorate their dining room tables. Next slide. And some data I thought I'd share with you all. We use the Northwest Evaluation Association, NWEA's MAP assessment, which is the measure of academic progress. So it's our benchmarks that the students take usually 3 times a year, at least 3rd through 8th graders, they take it 3 times a year. And we head to the next slide. I have some school-wide data. The teachers are really able to, as with the other benchmarks, drill down to the standards that they need to focus on for each grade level. So this is school-wide data for math, and the top rainbow, this kind of just shows the distribution. The next slide is a little more detail, but the top rainbow shows growth in math, and so red being just the 1st to 20th percentile based compared to other students in the country taking this test, and blue being the greater than 80%, so we want more blue, less red, more blue and green. On here it looks turquoise. But we were 72nd percentile for growth, so from the fall to the spring, we made a lot of growth in math. And the 2 rainbows underneath show that if you go to the next slide for math, in the fall, we were in the 35th percentile for achievement, and in the spring, the 46th. So we saw some growth in math this year with our NWEA assessments. The next slide, they generally take 3 tests. The older kids take science as well, but we have math, language usage, and reading. So that's what I have up here today. In language usage for growth, we were in the 38th percentile. And if you go to the next slide, it shows that in the fall we were 63rd, and in the spring 57th. So we dropped a little bit, which changed colors for those 6 points. So that's language usage. And the next one is reading, where we pretty much held strong. We were middle of the road, 58th percentile for growth, 52nd in the fall, and 53rd in the spring. So we didn't move the needle too far, but we didn't drop for reading. And next slide. Moving off of data to enrollment, we just did our enrollment lottery right before the break, and so we're currently processing new enrollment. We do have 20 seats available that we're looking to fill, and that would make 95 students total. We have lots of students on the wait list, and as we cull through, some people say, no, I've been on there for years, no thanks, we're happy where we are, and some people jump right in, so we're working through that process. We do have open seats in 1st, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 8th, and no seats in 2, 6, and 7, which is interesting. It kind of shifts every year. I mean, this year our 7, 8 was not full. Next year it's going to be, 27 if we want it to be. So interesting how the patterns change over time. Next slide. Our facility improvement project is underway, and I meant to throw some pictures in here. I made this before the spring break. We put new floor in the bathroom over break, and we put a fence around the backyard, which is super exciting. We've been wanting to do that for a long time. So very good news. More to come this summer. Next slide. Our second interim budget, we had a positive certification. We don't have any outstanding legal issues. We are submitted our insurance renewal, so we'll be bound till July 2025 once that's signed off. We've had 2 suspensions in the 23-24 school year so far. And our charter renewal with you all will be coming up June 30th of 2026. So I'll be working on that next year for the 2026 school year. And we are hiring a 1st and 2nd grade teacher. We're honing in on making that happen. It's very exciting. Our 1st and 2nd grade teacher is moving on, so gratitude to her. And we will be hiring one of our 4 teachers. So that's a big deal for us. Any questions?
How long is the current lease with the college?
5 years, so
Great.
till 2028
And
with
they're-
2-year renewals.
And they're letting you do what you want to do with the site?
Yeah,
Congratulations.
yeah. I mean,
Been a long time coming.
it has. I mean, Scott was there when we were trying to build a building and buy a piece of land or buy a building, and it just came to this is the best option, and we're going to make this site work and make it safe and clean for our students. And so we're excited to make it happen.
Great. And your board is full?
We need 1 board member. We're looking for a community member. We have Roger Coy, the former director, who's now retired, on the board, and then parents. So we'd love a community member that's not a parent. So if anybody out there is interested,
It's a really fun board to
hit
sit
us
on.
up. 1 board seat available.
Anyone out there?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Oh,
Diana.
sorry. So your enrollment, how do you select students and grade level? Like, how do you balance that? Because I imagine you don't want to let all the kindergartners in. Do you have a designated?
Yes, so
How do you do
first
that?
we do re-enrollment for the existing families,
Gotcha.
and we find out who's coming back. So those people automatically get a seat, and then siblings. If the families have a sibling, they get a seat, and then we determine how many seats are available. So that's what that number is,
Gotcha.
28 seats available. And then we put names in a hat, essentially,
Yeah.
but there's weighted groups. So English language learners, folks who live in the Fort Bragg Unified School District, people who identify as low income get their name multiple
First.
times in the hat.
Gotcha.
Or the bag, or the envelope, I think it is. And then it's a public event, so we had a couple people come. Some people are, waiting with bated breath to see. So we just say there's 5 spots in first grade, say. We start pulling names, and if there's 10, we start at number 1, and we just start calling.
Gotcha.
And we,
Oh, I see.
Until
Yeah.
we fill those 5 spots, we go down the list.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. And my other final question is, how's your attendance?
Our
Is it improving,
attendance is not
holding?
that great.
Okay.
Last year on the dashboard, I think it was in orange or red, but it hasn't been fabulous. I don't have the number in my head. I
Right,
apologize.
yeah, if it's
We did
improving, it's not.
We did start an incentive program where we're doing monthly drawings. We meet every month on the first Friday as a whole school community, and we call it our Reach Assembly for our Reach goals. So we generally have a focus, some kind of activity, a project. So we've started doing. You get an Osprey buck, which is our PBIS, our COTCHs, for having excellent attendance. And then we do a drawing, and somebody wins lunch with the principal, which was a hit. I got to have lunch with 2 first graders the other day. It was great.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Good
it'll
luck.
definitely be a
Yeah.
focus for next year to hit the ground running with attendance matters. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on, 8.6, second benchmark student data for secondary schools.
So in your slides that you have, we have our action plans that are also the data analyzer folder. You should have links to that too. That's the second slide, Renee. So our teams met in February to go through the second benchmark. So as you go through, you can see each of the departments met together and analyzed their data. I'm going to skip through, Renee, until I get to the site action plan. Unless there's question, well, we can come to the questions after that. So overall as a site, after looking, we worked together to come up with what our focus is going to be. It's slide 8. What our focus is going to be for the remainder of this school year to support student learning. The standards that we're focusing on in language arts is citing evidence. For years, we have been doing claim evidence and reasoning. And so kids being able to cite where the evidence is to support their claim, super important. And then for math, we're working on graphing. The strategies are listed there. It's all of the Kelly Smith strategies that we've talked about for the last several years. And speaking and listening, the one doing the talking is the one doing the learning. So that's what we have agreed to as a staff. And then the exciting part on the next slide is we've been doing performance tasks twice a year. This is the one from February, and the entire staff got together to analyze student work, and we had a rubric, which I believe is linked. I don't see it, but I think I linked the rubric if you wanted to look at that as well. So showing you 4 being a high score, 1 being the low score, where we landed as a school on doing the math performance task, which is direct correlation to the CAS testing. And then next slide. This is the exciting slide, in my opinion. This year we started working with our humanities team, working together to come up with a common writing prompt. And then it's given 6, 7, and 8. And then we come together as a staff using the rubric to score student papers together. And the conversations and professional development that are happening at the tables with the team, it's a rich discussion looking at where our kids are. So the yellow one, wow, your colors are different than mine were when I made this. Okay, so the yellow column is when we did this in October, and I shared this with you, I think, at the first benchmark when I came. So the lavender colored one is the one that we just did in March. And if you look at the bottom row, we have shown improvement from the first time that we did it. And then just so you know, we also have a benchmark. We've already got the prompt ready to go with supporting documentation for when we come back in the fall. So when I come back to report to you next time, we'll have a third column, and my plan is to follow the cohorts so that you can see that progress with the cohort. So because this is a new process, I don't have all that data for you yet, but next year we'll see that. So I would like to highlight that we went from having 0.32% getting a 4 on the rubric, and now we have 3%. We had 12 students in the entire school. So we have shown growth by doing this as a team together, and to have a writing prompt that all 400 plus of our students are writing on, it does help build a sense of community. And our teachers are, we're all together. We're all teachers of reading and writing, and supporting one another and understanding where our kids are and then how we can meet them where they're at. So that's my benchmark report. Any questions?
How are you feeling about things?
I'm excited. I mean, this is exciting.
That's great.
And then once our math department gets solidified, I'm hoping to be able to show you this with our math scores as well. The challenge there is that I have one math teacher with a permanent contract with us currently. So, and the other one, she'll be back. Next year I'll have 2 for sure. We're looking for that third one. So if anybody would like to come teach math at Fort Bragg Middle School, please look at EdJoin. And then I do highlights the next time we come back, so I'll have a more fun report. But this, to me, is super exciting when you look at the progress from October to March. We're doing good things.
And what
Yeah.
can you just briefly explain what a score point is?
It's using the rubric, which I think is linked. You just can't see it when it's in presentation mode. So
Okay.
if you look on the side, I linked the rubric so you could see it.
Okay,
And if I didn't, I meant to, but I'm
Yeah, I
pretty
don't-
sure I did.
Yeah, I don't see
And
it
so
linked.
it's the conversations about, is this a 1 or a 2, or there's a lot of discussion about what makes it fall within one of those categories. So one meaning, and I'm down on the low end, it wasn't well developed, they didn't have a claim, they didn't cite any evidence, it was not cohesive. There's a variety of things that go into where they fall. And then if we calibrated it as a group, we had exemplar papers, and then some papers did require 2 reading. Like we'd read through one, and I mean, this happened to me. I'm like, oh, I think it's a 3. And then I asked somebody else to read it because I was on the fence. Was it a 3 or was it a 2? And so then we'd have a conversation, and we would cite our evidence on why I thought it was a 3 and why the other teacher thought it was a 2. So, and then we agreed and moved on to the next paper. And we've gotten pretty good at it. I use ER admin days to do this. The first time that we did it, I thought, oh my gosh, we're not going to have enough time to get through all of it. And then you gain momentum as you get into the rhythm. And then the math ones, it was way faster because they're not as subjective. The answer's 9. So it's either says 9 or it doesn't. And so it's much faster.
Okay. And then really quick, I know you didn't go through the other information, but as far as electives and PE goes, things are, I mean, you don't have to go over it, but just
Things are good. Those are the classes where kids are successful. So electives are looking at universal design, access points for everybody. How do we help support kids be successful with what they're being asked to do? They also use rubrics to assess where students are at, and that's not a secret for students. Like, they know what the rubric is. They know how their work is going to be graded. Some of our classrooms even have, when the kids turn it in, they have the rubric out and the baskets 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm putting my paper in, for example, the 4 because I think I did wonderful work. But there's a lot of training and instruction that goes with that. So when the kid self-selects where that's going to go, they know all the pieces that they have in their work.
And as far as the variety of electives, you feel pretty good about what's offered and what's...
I expect to have more to offer next year, partly because our gigantic 8th grade class, and when I say gigantic, I think we're at 158, 159, will be departing, and we're anticipating going from, we're 412 now, we anticipate next year we'll be at 377, which frees up sections for elective classes for our teachers to have a passion project.
Great.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, I think our electives, with considering the staffing challenges, we've got really dynamic elective programs. I would say the ag, which feeds into the high school, it's well, you'll find out about that next month in the site plan. That has our biggest number of kids that are going to be able then to transfer that, especially in 8th grade, up to the high school and become a completer for the CTE pathway, or that's the goal. So yes, I think we have good electives to offer. And our band program, I mean, they're bursting in that. If you've gone in there when they're rehearsing, can I talk about it? We have an MOU because there's so many kids in that class, and he doesn't want to turn anybody away.
Right.
And when you go in and they're practicing, like, you can barely move in the classroom, and that's a gigantic room.
So when is that practice? Like when is? Can we go
Monday through
and-
Friday, he has class
all
every day. It's 6th and 7th period at middle
Oh, I see,
school, so
okay.
come at the end
Okay,
of the
6th
day.
and 7th,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
It's really fun to go watch. I love it when the doors are all open and it kind of wafts down the hallways.
Very nice.
Diana?
So my two questions, of course, are attendance improving, and then PE standards, is that still state evaluated? And are
Yes.
we just as flexible as we were 5 years ago and just as cardio
That
positive?
data was in our SARCs that I believe you approved in September.
The specifics, okay.
or
Just wondering if-
October.
January.
It's in the January. It's
January,
in
so
the
look in
school
that,
accountability
okay.
report card, which I came prepared to talk about the benchmark, not
Well,
how
it's
we
in
did.
your PE action that
Right.
there's. So I was just
And
wondering-
they should have their testing completed mid-May. So I don't know what our current results are
Yeah.
because they're in the middle of
Yeah,
testing.
not specific, but.
Yeah.
But attendance.
And our
is
attendance,
improving.
well, we're in ATSI, which I don't remember what that stands for. It's like differentiated assistance for chronic absenteeism.
Mm.
So on our dashboard,
Right,
we're
right. I was just wondering
struggling.
if it's slightly improved this last semester from the beginning of the year. I mean, not in gross numbers. I don't need specifics.
I did not
but-
come with that data.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
But yeah, just didn't know if that's monitored with.
Oh, yeah,
because
we
to
monitor it
Right, I know
daily.
you-
And it's
right.
on our marquee, what our attendance rate is. You just have to wait for it to cycle through. Like, we do keep it updated, and we
Okay.
used to have it sitting on our counter
Yep.
in picture frames, and we, just to not have barriers for vision for our staff in the
Yeah.
office, it's on our marquee, and
Yeah.
it is updated.
I just want to include that with all of the accolades here, and there is movement, but I think a lot of the public don't think it's enough. But I also want them to know that it's their responsibility to get their kids, and their kids need to go to school, and so that's why I'm trying to impress on people that it's important to show up because you only have 180 days, and we can't expect teachers and students to do above exceptional work or at the 4 level if they're not showing up. So that's
And
why
I
I'm
would agree with
asking.
you, and we
Yeah.
actually talked about it yesterday at ADCO,
Yeah.
about attendance and our plan, and to map out a campaign, for lack of a better
Right,
word.
right,
To
yeah.
inform our families, because I do think that they don't realize
Link
the
it
importance
together.
of missing even a day. How do you catch somebody up from the discussion about the rubric or the
Yeah.
editing on the
Yeah.
piece of work that I wrote, and how do I get peer feedback to improve what I've written on my own? So it's, every day is critical.
Yep, for sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Triplett.
There's the link.
There it is.
I just added.
You just added it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, it really wasn't there.
No, it wasn't
You did
there
have it
before,
in the
but
notes.
It was down in the presenter notes.
Yeah.
I see it.
It's okay. It was in the presenter notes.
Thank you.
So introduce some of your questions that are in here as well about the attendance. I think some of the,
Yeah, because
Of
that's,
ours.
because it is in Spanish.
yeah.
Yep, they mentioned it,
Yeah.
that it's making it hard to get
So
things
we're
stuff
we're
done.
working, just a little disclaimer, they're working on getting a better system. I think I went to the board chat this morning or this afternoon, but, so we're trying to work with Aries so that we can have a better system so that we can show the different growth over time. You know, our benchmarks, we have great benchmarks. However, the difficulty is finding the system to put it in there so we can get it, and you know, unfortunately our teachers are doing it by hand. So that's what does take so long. And so eventually, like I said, we're working on getting something so that you can see the growth over time, so you can see the snapshots of each one. So that's the English. You know, the great thing is what they've been focusing on in their classwork, they're doing better on. You know, no secrets. If you focus more on either warm-ups or whatever, you're going to get better results, and that's what they're noticing. The stuff that they focused on more, they're getting better results, and the stuff that they're kind of overlooking a little bit, they need to focus a little more on. So it's you know, there's great discussions happening in the English department. So you can keep going to the science. That's the one that they were very good at the keeping their in Illuminate. So they are showing some growth. They do the same one that's in the fall. This is our winter one, so we'll have the third one later. I think that's in June. That one's scheduled. So they're showing some growth, and similar to you know, they need to focus on some of the things they weren't hitting in their columns when they're looking at their data. They're noticing that they aren't getting the results. So they, if you go to the next one, I think it shows that they need to focus more on a few items. They're drawing their conclusions, but they're missing on some of the strategies. So they're, you know, when they write their action plan, they're looking at what they missed, what they got when they focused on something. So, but they are, like I said, science is showing growth as well. Math, you know, their focus is on, they look at what, and, you know, we need a lot of work. And if you look at our test scores, the difficulty, I think, you know, as Laura would probably say, is it's been tough. You know, they haven't had a position there, the same person, in 3 years. But then you put in their COVID and all that, and that's what they're noticing, is those are some of the things they're missing. So, you know, getting kids ready and getting, it's been a struggle. But they are noticing, like I said, the one that in algebra they took, they're noticing when they just finished, and so they did pretty good on it. If you look up at the top of I think at the top up there, yeah, their algebra 2, they did, you know, students did well. I think algebra is the focus, is trying to get the kids moved up.
But that still looks like they're doing.
They were doing good, but I think what they were noticing is they just finished a unit, and so when they tested on it, they just finished it, so it was there. So they're going to go back and read, and so they make sure they still have it at the end of the year.
At least they got it the first time.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So we can continue to go. I think in the social studies, they like I said, they did fairly well. I think they were mostly about 70% of them were right there on the, and I think the same thing if you go across the board, you go to the next slide, they're noticing, you know, like everything else, is their SPED students and their EL students are having a hard time. And so I think, you know, with having another position next year that can support other classes, which is going to be very beneficial, and I think we're going to notice that it's going to improve our EL scores. And that, you know, there's some talk in the SPED department of how we can improve the access to some of these benchmarks for them. How can we support them better? And like I said, attendance right there, the Spanish department is noticing that the students that are here consistently are doing better. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there's no secret there. If you're here, you hear the lectures, you practice, you're going to do better on the benchmarks. So that's what they're noticing too, that students that are consistently missing are struggling, which is you know, another reason why we need to be there at school. I think that was it. So any questions for the high school?
Yeah, because I don't know why I'm focusing on PE today, but in your electives, I guess they didn't have.
They had them in there, but
well, they didn't have the Notice and Wonder in all of the electives, and I just thought there's so much. There was a big group, but it's probably, I guess, hard to sum it up because all the electives are in it.
Yeah. I think what, you know, we're talking about is doing a universal one, and maybe that will be where they're going to support the language department. But the difficulty is
gotcha.
it takes a lot of time to score the rubrics. And we focused this year with our ER time on the committees to decrease suspension and things like that. So, and there's not enough ER times to do everything.
Right. Well, there's only 180
Yeah.
days.
10
months.
When's WASC back up? Is that
WASC
coming?
is next year, so we're starting right now. We're in the committees for that, but next year is our WASC year. believe it's in March of 25. Is
Can
when
you
our
explain what that is?
WASC? WASC is basically it stands for the Western Association for School and Colleges, and that's whether the stamp that says what you're doing is.
And it's every 3, 5?
It depends. It's 6 years. It depends on the school, but it's usually 6 years with a mid-year revisit, somewhere in 3. But so ours, 6 years is up this year or next
Okay.
year.
Yeah.
So then that's going to unfortunately take a lot.
That will
of
take
your-
up a lot of time as well. Yep.
Yeah. So when you do these benchmarks and people aren't in attendance, do you really hound everyone down? Like every student in the school's done benchmark? I mean,
I pull them into the office.
yeah, that's rough. So under duress, they're preparing. I mean, 'cause that's the other thing that people need to know. I mean, the numbers, we have to have a baseline, but there's so many factors that
Right.
make it not reflective of what they know, and that when they leave the district, they have skills to navigate further education. But not to say that these aren't important and don't need to keep striving higher, but there's so many factors that I just
And
wonder
many of
how
our
many are
benchmark-
ready for this.
Right.
You know, how many
of our
had to be.
benchmarks are tied to a test that they
Okay.
take for a
So
unit
they-
test or
okay.
something. So they're integrated in the curriculum.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, 8.7, summer school planning.
Okay, so just a quick update. We will send out on Monday the selection for our parents for summer school, so they'll have the opportunity to go through and decide what to enroll their child in. So we have that going out in both English and Spanish, so we should get rocking and rolling with that. We have our staff. We probably have more staff who have volunteered to, or not volunteered, but have
Really?
said that they would come teach summer school or be support staff for summer school than we will probably need, I would guess. But that's a nice problem to have. So we should be able to have very robust programs, I think, and do some great things for kids this summer. Other than that, hopefully we'll have a little bit more information for you as far as numbers that have signed up and that kind of thing next month. So.
Okay, any questions?
And we're still having the intervention and enrichment programs,
Yes.
right?
Mhm. Yep, we're running both sides of things. Though I have to say, I think parents tend to sign their students up for the enrichment part a little bit more, but we try to, regardless of which side they go in, they're going to get a little bit of both. So.
Great.
What campuses host or?
So this year it will be Dana Gray again, though we would like to in the future years rotate that somewhere else. It's just, it always seems to land there until we get done with the construction at Redwood. I think once we have that, then we'll rotate to Redwood for a year or two so Dana Gray can get caught up on some maintenance stuff that needs to happen in the summertime.
Makes sense.
All right, 8.8, 2024-25 student enrollment projections.
Okay, if you looked initially, when everything was posted, I didn't have the numbers in there. I put them in yesterday. So overall, our enrollment, we're projected to grow tentatively by about 7 students from where we are right now to the fall. That's subject to change just depending on kindergarten enrollment is always the big question there. If you do notice, the high school is going from an enrollment of 519 students currently to 564 students projected in the fall. So, I was having the conversation with Mr. Anderson and Mr. Triplett yesterday around where are we going to put class? And I said, well, we might have to buy some carts. I don't know, and have teachers rotate around if we have nowhere else for a little while. I mean, there's not a lot of other options right now. We have some really large groups moving through there. So
So you have 120 for kindergarten?
That's the estimated amount.
Is that based on anything?
That's based on if we had the teachers that we currently have all maxed out for the number of students they could have with 24 in each classroom. So we don't know where that's going to land, and we don't know where TK enrollment's going to land. So it's, like I say, that all of that's just
So it could change quite a bit.
that could change quite a bit. And you can see recent years, it's been as high as 110 or so and as low as 99. So we never know what it's going to be until, honestly, late summer, because some folks move into the area and enroll their kids in kindergarten. Some folks don't even think about kindergarten until August, to be honest. So we are doing another enrollment event for kindergarten, I believe, next week. So.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, 8.9, 2022-23 Annual Report of the Citizens Oversight Committee. Thank you both very much. Enjoy the sunshine.
So this is just a required report annually. There was not a lot of action this year, but at a board member's request, we did add, it's a good idea, committee member names at the bottom of the report, so that was uploaded again.
That was going to be my question, like, who, did we have I mean, not that they need a quorum, but
Right, who
was
actually-
everyone able to attend? There's only 4 or 5 members, so.
Yeah, so there's,
Thank you.
we have 4 members, and then Wendy and I sit on there to support as well.
4, yeah, perfect. Thank you, because I was wondering.
Certainly.
Just if the public wants to know, ask them questions, it's nice for them to get credit for attending.
Absolutely. And I think,
it's listed on the website.
Yeah, it does.
I'm trying to think, of the ones we have, how many are veterans of the Bond Oversight Committee from like the 2008?
First one?
Yeah,
From the 2003?
or 2003, yeah.
Well, Kate and I were on that together.
Jennifer was a board member.
I think Dave might have been on one later.
Okay. I was gonna say, I thought Dave was on something too, so. Okay.
So they're veterans.
So they're veterans, they know what to expect. They're always lovely meetings, and they've had they've been very supportive of what's been going on and being able to get that message out to the community. And we will meet with them again. We're scheduled in May, I believe. Yes. So.
Any questions? All right, thanks for putting that report together. 8.10 Superintendent Report.
Okay. I will try to make this as quick as possible. There's still a lot here. So, in curriculum, we have our Ethnic Studies Curriculum Committee met this week. We're really close on a draft proposal of the curriculum, keeping in mind that the curriculum is going to have probably more than we can possibly cover in a semester, because we're teachers on the committee and tend to overplan. So that's why we're going to run it next year as a pilot program to see what we need to make. The committee has committed to continuing the work into next year so that we can support the teachers that are teaching. The current recommendation is that it would fall into our sophomore English class, so one of the semesters there, as it can overlap with a social studies or an English class. It could technically overlap with other classes too, but I don't know that it fits as well in those. We have a lot of lessons that have come from the Ethnic Studies model curriculum from the state that we're referencing now. We anticipate that those will develop and grow into other lessons as we find other resources. And I'll go ahead and give you a heads up that the one area that's probably lacking, but the state is working really hard to develop, is the Native American Studies part of things. So Humboldt County Office of Ed and San Diego County Office of Ed are working together to build a Native American Studies curriculum for the state that's actually K-12. So it'll be pretty exciting when that comes out. They're looking at 150 different lessons, and so we're defaulting to them knowing that, at least in our area, the Humboldt County Office of Ed has met with folks in Point Arena, Covelo, just kind of, our area will be well represented, I do believe, in that curriculum as it comes about. On the science curriculum, Redwood and Dana Gray, we have another pilot going. We hope to have a recommendation by the end of school. I know that's cutting it close, but it's been difficult to find a curriculum that our teachers are finding useful. They're like, if we have to have something, we can do that, but we want something that's going to be beneficial to students. And so this is sort of the last round of what we can do, and we're going to have to make a decision at that point and bring something forward to you. So I apologize that has taken so long, but it's just the products are not very good, unfortunately.
Well, you know, Kelly Smith had talked about, you know, making your own curriculum. So, I mean, would it behoove us to pay our own teachers to make curriculum over the summer instead of spending all this money on?
Perhaps. I don't know where we're going to find the leadership around that necessarily. I just don't. I'm thinking about my time and you know, my principal's time and things. So bringing a consultant in, it's potentially, but it's not going to have the bells and whistles of, you know, like the cool things that some of these curricula do. So
I don't know. I was just intrigued by her at the workshop.
Yes.
Know, that, you know, and you think we probably have some pretty amazing science people.
We do.
I mean,
yeah.
Maybe just to supplement it.
Yeah, I think that might be where we end up, is to get a basic curriculum that gets some of the vocabulary and meets the standards, and then pay our teachers to do like the cool supplemental pieces on top. I think is more likely where we'll.
So expensive. And I hate
Well, and that's what I'm looking at, the more basic ones that aren't as expensive,
Right.
and then we can add the other pieces on top with the potential savings there. We'll see. I wish I had better news there. I really do, but our teachers have been.
I mean, when the national standards, I mean, it's been a long time.
It has.
Yeah,
And they
most
have
of my,
not-
the last like 5
Yeah, I
years.
think-
Yeah, it's.
It's been a long time coming.
I don't think the textbook companies can keep up with the pace of content in our daily lives anymore, and so they're just not really trying, unfortunately. I would think, I mean, it's kind of throwing them under the bus, but they were used to, I mean, if you remember the old structure, here's the list of the 12 textbook companies you can
Pick
choose
one.
from and the series that they have, and that's it. Those were the only choices you had. Now that it's kind of more open and there's so much content out there, they can't keep up.
Well, exactly, because you really you couldn't research anything else. Like these were our 12 we have to pick from, and that's it. Now we can.
Yep. You say, no, there's a
Yeah.
better lesson for that.
Right.
There's another way to approach
Yeah.
that. So more to come there. In the area of safety, the city of Fort Bragg conducted the Emergency Operations Center test on April 3rd. The exercise was a success from the accounts that I've heard. And we're looking forward to partnering with them in emergency preparedness. And we have our MOU that's on the agenda a little bit later for that. We have a safety committee meeting coming up on Monday, April 22nd at 3:30. I will bring or share the PowerPoint that we have that you'll see in just a moment, actually on the next slide here, for our California Healthy Kids Survey. I think that's probably very prescient data for our safety committee to take a look at. And so, I don't know if you can bring that up. I won't go through the whole thing with you right now, just simply because it is quite a few slides, but I do have some highlights. There's some very interesting things that I think answer some of the questions that you've had as a board, and so I'll try to highlight those as we move through. At Dana Gray, we got 98% of our 5th grade responded, so when we reopened, we got what we needed there, as opposed to, I think it was 16% or something like that, the first run that we went through. And when we look at, is it not cooperating for you?
I'm sorry, it's the mouse, actually. I've been having a lot of issues with the mouse, I apologize.
And so on General climate for the school, it really hasn't recovered to pre-pandemic levels, unfortunately. So if you want to scroll to, sorry, there's a lot of information they give us, and if you look at the report, there's even more information. I mean, it's extensive. But you can see for school climate, we're just not back to where we were pre-pandemic levels with how our fifth graders are feeling, and it's you'll see a little bit later we do a comparison of these to Mendocino County and the state, and I think the part that hurts my heart as an educator is it's not unique to us. It's kind of across the board. You know, when only 58% of our fifth graders are feeling connected to school, and that's a high point for the area and for the state. That's,
Wow.
yeah.
So just some trust issues.
Just some trust
potentially,
issues,
'cause
and
they've gone through a lot.
understandable. I mean,
Yeah.
if you throw the pandemic issues in and things like that, those students are a little wary about some of this stuff. So it's going to probably take a generation to kind of build some of those trusts and things back up. And say, just hurts my heart as an educator to see that. But we still maintain decent academic motivation. The truancy piece, it's very interesting, the difference between when this was administered in 2021 versus now.
Was that self-reported on the truant?
Yes. So you're thinking in 2021 they didn't
lying.
miss because they were sitting on a computer.
They were home.
Gotcha.
So anyway, the other piece that we didn't really have time to break it out in the way that we would like to is it's also interesting to be able to take, and it hasn't fallen the way that it typically we would do this every other year, so you can compare fifth graders to seventh graders to ninth graders to 11th graders and see those same kids across the board. Because of how it ended up that we took it early because of the pandemic, we don't have those same comparisons that we can do, and it'd be virtually impossible to kind of track where those kids are. So it's a little frustrating in that we can't see the same kids responding to the same prompts across years with these, just because of the timing. So one of the things I will say with our fifth graders, substance use is down when looking at that. So it's good that we don't have fifth graders who've been exposed to substances as much. Bullying and teasing are up, and I'd say that's pretty common across these results, as you'll see. And then also particularly with our fifth graders was around body image. So if you look at that last one, that's a very significant increase from the 2021 to now. So I want to highlight that with our counselors as well and just say, did you know? This is kind of an important thing to know, that that's been a big issue coming out. Looking at our mental health indicators, we had some of them decreased slightly. So looking at the missing school days and that sort of thing, I think it's actually the next one, Renee. They kind of run into, no,
Connectedness.
okay. Yeah, I think it was connectedness. Anyway, sorry. All these charts look exactly the same. So, you know, we see some slight decrease in mental health. We see some bullying and teasing that are up. And I think these are all things that aren't news, but at least we have some numbers that we can start to track and see what's going on. As we move, and you can look again as it's broken out by race. I think we also have gender on here as well. So you can look a little deeper into that. I will highlight a little bit as we get into some of the other areas where I see some significant disparities between racial ethnic groups as we move forward. So if we can move forward to the middle school section. Oh, before we go, sorry, these are the comparisons. So at the end of each one, you can see the different bands by California fifth graders, our fifth graders, Mendocino County, and then our fifth graders in different years. So you can kind of see the blue being the most recent fifth grade for our students there. So,
Go look at the next one, called names and targeted mean jokes.
yeah.
On the next, yeah, right there.
Yeah.
We're way up.
Oh, yeah, and the hitting. The
Yeah,
hitting
that's
and
a,
pushing.
that one really stands out among, unfortunately, and not the way that it should, so. So in looking then at our middle school students, our 7th graders took this. We had 86% of our 7th graders respond. So that's a pretty good response rate there. Our school climate indicators are generally up from 21-22, but still not to pre-pandemic levels. You can kind of see it's not universal, but there's still, school connectedness is one that I'm wondering how the questions that they're asking, so I need to drill down a little further and look at specifically if there's some verbiage, because it's pretty much school connectedness is down all the way across the board. But a lot of the other pieces are up in the areas that they're supposed to be up. And
So you think
flat
the
in others,
questions
so.
may be different?
I don't think that they're
asked
different, but I think that they hit differently based off the experiences that students have had recently. They keep the questions pretty similar, but it just, I didn't go back and read the actual verbiage that they use, and there might be some things that kids are like, no, I don't feel that anymore. And there may be some relevance to that, unfortunately, so. When looking at our school safety indicators, they really have not moved in a positive direction for our 7th graders, comparatively speaking. Particularly when you look at the perceived as safe or very safe, we had a 10% drop there from 2021 to now, and significant if you look pre-pandemic levels as well. We had also, I mean, that was the biggest one that stood out to me there, and then the increase also in the, while small percentage-wise, it's still, that's a significant number of students on the last one there, been drunk or high on drugs at school ever. Just to think that 6% of our 7th graders have had that experience. This is not a question they ask our 5th graders, I don't believe.
So what do they classify as a weapon? 'Cause
Oh,
they're-
that's,
I mean-
yes, that, I meant to, thank you for asking that question. That they ask very broad questions around that, so it includes knives, it includes, and, you know, I'm like, well, we live in the country, so it could be pocket knives that they're seeing, you know, it doesn't make any
Right,
distinction.
that seems like a
among
high
those.
number, but.
And
but
you'll
I don't
see
know
that
what they-
throughout.
Okay.
And again, I have delved into that question before, and it's always been a little misleading in our rural schools, just simply because they treat a knife the same as a gun as a,
Because I was thinking our suspensions aren't in line with that number,
yeah.
but it's.
Well, and I
'cause
wonder
it's-
if the fighting is too. But I guess kids get in fights and admin doesn't know about it, but.
Right, and all of this is
That
reported
seems high too.
by students.
Yeah.
And it's also been in a physical fight like ever at school. So.
Oh, so it doesn't mean that year.
So it could be like, when I was in 3rd
cumulatively,
grade, I got in a
yeah.
tussle at school, and so, yeah, I'm gonna report this. So it's, again,
They're literal learners and readers, so I see.
yeah,
Okay.
so they're gonna say,
Self-reporting.
have I
with
been in a
reminding.
fight at school? Okay.
Yes, and every year I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you'll see that with some of these indicators, because as they get to 11th grade, they really start to increase when it's like any that ever, like, specifically mentioned in the question, so.
This year, they should
Thank
put.
you for that.
Yes. Let's see, when looking at our substance use mental health indicators, I mean, the one that always gets me on this one is the considering or has considered suicide. That it's 15% of our students there. And then right above that, they experience chronic sadness or hopelessness at 34% of our students. While those are, the suicide rate is, or considered suicide is down, even from pre-pandemic levels, it's still, that hurts. That's a hard statistic to see. And they experience hopelessness, that it's still a third of our students feeling that way. It is. And then when you look at the other indicators, they're down to steady on the substance use part of things. So I was at least encouraged that that's not an increasing trend at this point. So, and then we have some of the same slides in there for the different comparatives. One of the things I will say is our Hispanic or Latinx students are feeling more connected to school than our white students are. And the other one I think is on the next slide with school safety and substance use. Looking at our experience harassment or bullying, that seems to be much higher, or not, it's significantly higher with our white students over our Hispanic or Latinx students. And the other indicators you can kind of see are fairly similar, except for been afraid of being beaten up. That was the other one that kind of stood out to me with the 7th grade. There's quite a gap there. So, and our multiracial students, there weren't enough who reported themselves as multiracial to be a significant group this time around, and that's across the board. So I don't know if they changed the threshold there or.
The threshold was 10.
Okay, so, but it is self-reported. It's not based off of CalPads or anything like that. So.
This is all students.
Because that doesn't line up well with where our reporting sits, which would have more than 10 students at these levels. So, okay, looking on to the high school, and again, got all this for your perusal, but we could be here all night going into.
Yeah. So this is almost like a study session we could do.
This really
for
could be a
wellness.
study session.
Yeah, like
It's,
wellness.
I wanted to give you the data, and then we can come back around to it if we
Yeah.
want to revisit.
Yeah.
So looking at the high school, we had 86% of our 9th grade and 83% of our 11th grade took this, and we've got them combined on a lot of slides and then broken out on other slides, so we'll take a look at there. School climate is kind of mixed results, but one of the things I did want to report was that caring adult relationships seems to be up. Just slightly for our 9th graders, but our 11th graders are feeling pretty well connected. Back to the 1920 levels, and this would have been administered before everything went sideways in 1920. So it's nice to see that to me is one of those indicators I always look for, because it's student perception around that.
17-18 was a bad year.
Yeah, 17-18 was that there was something going on. But also with high expectations, that 81% of our 11th graders are looking and feeling that there are high expectations, and that's up slightly from 2021, down slightly with our 9th graders, but it's still 71%, which, again, I have to come back to. This is self-reported, so
Yeah.
sometimes the students are, in a mood that particular day. So, as we're all parents, so it makes sense. Okay. On the school safety side of things, it's really kind of a mixed bag. We see our schools being perceived as safe or very safe. We're still, with our 9th graders, are not back up to even 2021 levels. Though 1920, we're actually a little lower there. And the same thing with 11th grade is actually up from 2021 just a little bit. So again, it's kind of mixed all the way across as you look. Experiencing the bullying, harassment is still a significant portion of our population at 43% of our 9th graders and 34% of our 11th graders. Some of that I also wonder, though, is the definition of bullying, and if students, I know that in dealing with a lot of our public, we hear bullying when it's a one-time incident of like kid on kid not having a disagreement about something, versus bullying being differences in power and persistent and ongoing kind of things. So some of that might be some education we need to do about what is and what isn't bullying. But we look at our percentages of been in a physical fight, that's much lower at this level than, say, our 7th grade was. So, and consistent, seen a weapon on campus, again, 17 or 19%, that's, feels pretty high, but we talked through some of those reasons. Been drunk or high on drugs at school ever, you see that number does actually increase, because unfortunately we have students who do the things that they use at different times. And so by the time they're 11th grade, we're looking at 1 in 5 students having been drunk or high at school ever. So, on the next slide, we have our substance use and mental physical health. So the substance use is fairly flat to decreasing, so that's good information. When looking at it as an aggregate, well, I'll put a little star on that one, and we'll come back to it when we get to the breakout here in just a minute. Our mental health, when looking again at those two, the considered suicide and the chronic absentee, or chronic absenteeism, chronic sadness and helplessness are still pretty high. When I look at those, again, 42 and 43% of our students feeling that chronic sadness or helplessness is, that's real. So, in looking,
And they're self-medicating, so.
I know.
So, I mean, that's high. All of that's really high too,
Yes.
which is,
It is,
in
and
this county, it's not good.
unfortunately, when we look at these in comparison to the state, we'll take a second and kind of land on those in a minute. But it doesn't, we don't necessarily stand out on those issues statewide.
Wow.
So if we look then as we get into, could we go to the race ethnicity for substance use? Yeah.
For 11th grade or 9th grade?
Let's see, what was I looking at? Let's start with the 9th grade for the substance use. Sorry. So it's actually, sorry, they pre-populated these, so they kind of broke them up in weird ways. It's the next one, the next set of 2. There we go. So the current are alcohol or drug use that we see with our students. Our Hispanic and Latinx students, we have 19%, and our white students, we have 33%. I mean, both those numbers are high, but that there's a significant disparity there just makes me ask the question why. What's different in those? And that's with our 9th graders. If we look at our 11th grade, it's a little closer with that. But it's still, those are very significant numbers that we're looking at. 1 in 3 students are currently using alcohol or drugs. And, you know, if we look back historically, it's still lower than it has been, but I still,
Really?
yeah, if you look at the 2019,
Yeah, that's
20
really,
or
that's half.
they were half. So we're moving in the right direction in broad strokes, but still to
Right.
me, that's worrisome for our students. And then if you look at the experienced chronic sadness or hopelessness, that we have 36% of our Hispanic or Latinx students and 53% of our white students. Those are huge numbers. So I wish this were more uplifting data, but it is the realistic snapshot. I know that you have asked about how are the kids doing, and this is from their mouths in recent times. So probably doesn't help that it's also administered in the winter when we're on the coast. And some of those things too.
That's real.
Trying to make excuses, but
Yeah.
it's also, I wonder if it would be different if it were a nice sunny day.
Or they just walked, like, they took a
Yes.
walk before they did the
Yeah,
survey,
or
like clearing their.
some prep around that.
Yeah.
But let's see. So looking at schools perceived as safe, we're still right in there with pretty much what the state and county averages are. And when you look at seeing a weapon on campus, we're lower than we were in 1920 for our 9th graders. And we're about where the state is, and we're lower significantly than Mendocino County. So for whatever solace that is with this. Substance use comparison. it's interesting that our cigarette use is way down from when I first started with Healthy Kids Survey back in, the early 2010s. It's way down from that, but we're still way higher than the rest of the state and the county. So it's an interesting thing. It's still not a hugely significant number, but it's just interesting to see cigarettes are not in with kids at all that I can tell.
Look like they've replaced it with other things.
Yeah.
Yes. And you can see in Mendocino County, among ninth graders, marijuana use is very high, and so we're doing a better job comparatively there. Vaping currently, our students are below what they have been in the past, and also the county levels, but still above what the state is for ninth grade. So, and same thing you can see with 11th grade. We are a little higher on the perception of our schools as safe from our 11th graders than across the board there, and seeing a little bit less with harassment or bullying than we have in our trends, but we're still above what the state and county would be for our 11th graders. So, and then with the weapon on campus was in the same ballpark. Substance use comparison, you can kind of see we had a major spike in the 1920, really. I mean, when you look at it in this kind of puts it across there. With our 11th graders, they're certainly not using cigarettes at the same level. That message has gotten through by that point. I also wonder that ninth graders hadn't had all of their health education by the time they took this survey, and maybe as they get a little more educated on the impacts of vaping and cigarettes, because that's a big part of the health curriculum as well. And then you can see these are the comparison with our 5th, 7th, 9th, and 11th graders across some different parts. You can see that while our 5th graders perceive the school as more safe, they also say that they're experiencing more harassment and bullying, and mean rumors or lies spread. But in 5th grade, the extent of that might be different than it is, say, at 11th or whatnot, and kids are still figuring that piece of things out. It's a lot of the time they get educated and they kind of grow in those areas. So that's a lot, and I know there's a lot more that we can dive into there. There is a link at the end to the full survey results, so if you really want to dive in, you can go in and see what questions make up each of those reporting categories across, and it breaks it down in just about every which way that you can think of. I mean, I think under the link it's about 100 or so pages on the 5th and 7th grade, and then about the same amount on our 9th and 11th grade. So,
and I know back in the day they had like their meeting, the state meeting with this report, and it's actually kind of interesting to have all the experts discussing like what this means to them. So if anyone's bored, I'm sure you could find a meeting.
Yes.
You could Google it.
Let's see when
Learn more
they're
than you
considering that. So, okay. Tried to sandwich that in there there's some other positive things, I promise. So looking, I did want to bring to you, I put in, these are not meant for you to be able to read other than to just kind of see. The top lines in all of these are most recent diagnostic through iReady. So the more green you see, the better. But the one on the bottom in each pair as you're going down is from our first administration at the beginning of the year. So you can see some growth over time. I put these together pretty quickly, but I wanted to use this as an example of something that we could show data in a way that kind of breaks that out. We can do this by school. We can do this we can go down to classroom. Not that I would show that publicly, but it does allow us to get to that level of granularity. So if this is something the board would like to see after each administration, this is a pretty straightforward report, I think, to pull and show as we look. So this is for our reading, and you can see that currently it's about 34% of our students are at grade level or early on grade level is what the terminology they use there. So,
Is there something you can add down the road that shows the county or the state?
unfortunately, this is out of our system iReady, so there's not really,
Of course, okay.
they don't have those comparatives
Yep,
in
yep.
there. As much as I would like to see those things, they
Yeah,
don't.
okay.
It's one of the shortcomings here. What our teachers can then do with this data, though, is for each individual student, it says, oh, you need to work on in these areas down below, and it assigns them their work within the system so the teachers can have them log in and do that work. If we look at the next slide, it has our math. And currently we can see about 25% of our students are early on grade level or on grade level. So if that holds true through our testing, that's an increase. It's still not where we want to be, but we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, it seems like our spread is 20, 80, 30, 70. It just
Yeah.
doesn't seem like it. That's
Yeah.
about what it goes.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Mm.
So we're using all the tools we can. I'm in the classrooms and see them all doing the work. It's just there's a lot to build on. But I think, as Kathy said a few times, we're starting to come out of this, and we're
Right.
starting to get some momentum and energy behind things and seeing things moving forward. So on the LCAP update, I don't have a lot to share this month because I've just been doing a lot of the actual trying to get it in. Renee's been helping me try to get our data kind of put into place, get our update in place. As you know, there's a lot to kind of pull together with this. I will share with you kind of a rough draft, mainly of our actions and goals, metrics, that kind of thing, in the May board meeting. I'll also have that draft presented to our English, our DLAC, that's required, have it available for other folks to look at. I hesitate to put it out on the website and just keep updating it, but that's probably what I'll have to do, is just as we make updates, because it's kind of constantly
Process.
evolving until we get to that June board meeting. But especially if there's a month of time between the June board meeting and the May board meeting there. So that'll continue to evolve. If there are other ideas or thoughts that you have, please feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to include them. I'll share some notes with you, and starting tomorrow with some things, so you can see a document that'll kind of grow and change as we work on a draft of our through our ADCO with the actions. The goals will stay basically the same, but we'll add a little bit more information there. So what you'll see tomorrow shared with you is just going to be what's kind of there and what we already know, and then we'll keep developing that as we brainstorm through the data and make sure. We have a slide for attendance. We talked about their enrollment. It's pretty similar to what's already going this school year. And finally, for fiscal, we'll have our CBO interviews will be held tomorrow afternoon in this very room. We have 2 candidates, and so looking forward to that. And thank you to those members who can attend and be a part of that. Our May revise is expected to be released by May, or not expected, it will be released by May 14th by law. Current projections show that the state revenue is coming in above LAO projections but it's still, we're not really sure how this is all going to fall out. From what I've seen, the press that the governor and the legislature is trying to get out there is that the schools will be pretty flat funded rather than trying to make significant cuts. They still don't talk about how they're actually going to make that work, if it's going to be deferrals and those sort of things where it's not a cut in the budget, but in reality we're not getting as much cash. So
Right.
that's it will be interesting to see how they what tricks they use to pull that off.
Yeah.
So, and sorry that was a lengthy report, but that concludes my report. So,
All right. 8.11, do we have a report from California Schools Employees Association?
do we have?
No, we do not.
Okay. I will share with you their sunshine letter that they shared with me just today, so I'll send that to you as well.
8.12, do we have a report from Fort Bragg District Teachers Association?
I haven't received
No,
anything.
Nope.
there's
Okay. Before we move on to item 9, is everyone okay to keep going? Anyone need a break? Okay. Okay. Moving on to item 9, approval of agenda consent items. And Kathy, if you would be so kind as to read the list.
Those items this month are number 1, warrants, number 2, the minutes, number 3, personnel action forms, 4, contracts, 5, the Williams quarterly report for the third quarter of 23-24, and obsolete materials.
Okay. Is there any item that the board wishes to be removed from the consent calendar for further discussion? Okay. Any questions on anything on the consent calendar?
I move to approve the consent items.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Item 10, move into a public hearing. Let me get my script here. So item 10.1, the board will now open a hearing regarding the potential conveyance of an easement to Pacific Gas and Electric Company as part of the district's initiative to install electric vehicle charging stations on real property owned by the district. The easement to be conveyed is located at 430 Alger Street in Fort Bragg, California. Any member of the public may comment. The public hearing on this matter is now open. Do any members of the public wish to comment on the matter?
8:02.
Just wait to make sure there's nothing coming online. There's no one present physically. Because say the public hearing opened at 8:02.
Yes,
Okay.
I noted that.
Thank
There's
you.
no public comment.
Okay. So if that is the case, hearing no public comment, the public hearing is now closed at 8:03. Go back to my... Okay, so moving on to 11.1. Resolution number 2404, conveying an easement to Pacific Gas and Electric Company for the purpose of installing electric vehicle charging stations at 430 August Street in Fort Bragg, California.
All right. So with the approval of this resolution, we'll be able to convey an easement so that we can get our line upgraded to install our electric chargers for our buses. So,
And has there been contact with the neighbors? And there's, I mean, they've just been notified,
yeah, they've just been,
like they got a letter or something? I mean, so or this is
the
just.
public notice that's been out. We put it in the paper
Yeah,
and the required
gotcha.
pieces that
Yeah.
are there. So, yeah, so it's been,
Properly
and we
noticed.
advertised widely to, it went into the Ukiah paper as well and that kind of thing. So I would think anybody who had an interest would have had a chance to weigh in.
Mhm.
So,
All right, with that, if there's no further questions or any public comment on this item.
There was none.
Thank you, Renee. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve resolution number 2404, conveying an easement to PG&E for the purpose of installing the electric vehicle charging station.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, roll call, please.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Munoz?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Perfect. 11.2, Resolution 24-05, specification of election order.
all right, so this is one of those very routine pieces that we have to do in an election year. That indicates that we have one member term to a term ending in December 2026, and we have two members to term ending in December 2028. So this just allows us, we'll pass this along to the county, and they'll be able to accept folks putting in their applications for those positions.
Okay. Does anyone wish to have the resolution read out loud? You know, sometimes we do that. No? Okay.
Nope.
All right, any public comment on this?
There is no public comment.
Thank you, Renee. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve Resolution 2405, resolution of the School Board of Trustees.
And I'll second.
All right, thank you, Diana, and roll call.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Munoz?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Perfect. 11.3, Resolution 24-06, closing unused funds.
The county mentioned to us, well, in trying to clean up all of everybody's books, they noticed certain funds that districts aren't using anymore or are completely obsolete, unnecessary, no longer really exist. And so we're recommending to close this particular list.
All right, are there any questions?
Sounds uncontroversial. They're just trying to make the
Clean-
report
clean up.
shorter.
Yes. All right, is there any public comment?
There is no public comment.
All right, I'll entertain a motion for this resolution.
I move to approve the resolution 2406, closing unused funds.
And a second?
I'll second.
All right, roll call, please.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Munoz?
Yes.
And Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Okay, item 11.4, the 2022-23 bond audit.
So this is the audit of the work we've been doing so far, and there really isn't anything
No findings.
controversial, interesting. It's just basically we're doing what we're supposed to do and spending the money appropriately, so.
There were no findings, but
No.
it didn't look like they had much to review. I mean,
No.
from the report, it's just
No.
odd. They had to have looked through a lot. No?
We send them everything. They have
yeah.
access to our full financial system, so they can look at whatever they
Oh,
want.
gotcha.
But we send them, show them that the Citizens Oversight Committee has met and that they have reviewed we share the minutes of those meetings with them, and any new contracts, which we didn't have any new ones for this year because that one was still underway, so now for this year there will be.
Be more to
the-
review.
The GMP that is the next item.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right, any other questions? Is there any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment.
All right, thank you. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the 22-23 bond audit.
I move to approve.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, roll call, please.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Munoz?
Yes.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Okay. Item 11.5, the Redwood Elementary School TK Expansion and Admin Modernization LLB project.
All right, and LLB is leaseback. in case
Thank you.
And so we have our guaranteed maximum price. That's what GMP stands for. So, all these terms that, and
Keep saying, thinking gross national product.
Yeah.
and so, as Donna explained earlier, with the exception of anything that comes back from DSA, this should be the maximum price for the work that we're having done. Any questions about the GMP?
So this is the most, so it could be less.
It probably won't be much less if it is less, but
Okay.
I would say on our phase one, we were 275,000 less or something like
Yeah,
that?
300-ish, yeah.
Yeah,
It was the
so-
only change orders were in our favor.
Right.
Oh,
And that was
awesome.
at the
Yeah.
end of the contract when they were closing it
Okay.
out. Some of the contingencies they had built in ended up not coming to fruition, so good news all around.
And I
The-
like,
The only caution I would put with this is because we're doing remodeling of existing structure as a part of this phase.
Oh,
I
you
wouldn't
never
get too
know.
hopeful around that.
Which will trigger in what area? Just the office, and you're moving, so all of that could.
Yes.
You could have a hiccup
If they
in
run
there.
into
Start
something
opening walls.
when they
Gotcha.
open the walls and things, it could-
Gotcha.
we could run into some issues there. And maybe not, maybe we'll be okay.
And then the Redwood that's using ELOP funds, those numbers are in here as well. That's
Yes.
what was clarified. And I like to see there's a couple of local contractors here being in use. And I wish, well, Jerry, if you're out there, you want to comment with his eye.
I know, right?
He's the contractor, but,
Does this lock in pricing from subcontractors and materials, or not?
These are the bids they've
These are-
gotten
yes.
from the contractors based on the plans.
And bids, I know normally are good for a few months. In these cases, they're probably good for longer because of the process?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't see
This
any
is what
huge
they're-
surprises?
No,
No.
this is what they're committing to.
and these are the contractors you've selected, as long as
Well,
the
they-
DSA, well,
they-
well.
FRC
RC.
goes out to other subcontractors and gets bids from them on the different parts.
Okay.
And one of the contingencies in here is, there was one of them, the price was pretty good, and they said, well, we're gonna pad that a little internally just to make sure.
Okay.
So they're,
So that, all of that work's been done, though, so once we get
Right.
the DSA approval, it's like, this is why we're getting it so early,
Yes.
yes.
and then you'll be ready to,
Ready to
go.
go. with the-
Okay.
the work. Yep.
And does this include everyone's wish list for this? And is there,
Well, no.
okay.
within the
You know,
the
mandatory,
bond.
necessary, desirable.
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
The
all right.
mandatories and the necessaries are pretty much there.
Okay, good.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Some
Maybe
of the desirables.
one or two desirables, maybe?
Some of the desirables,
Okay.
yeah.
We, for example, they initially brought us plans with 2 bathrooms per classroom. And we said, no, 1 bathroom is absolutely fine. You know,
Right.
Got it.
So
Just
things like
within-
that, and that's how we were able to also bring some of the pricing down.
Right.
So that hopefully we can bring some of that savings forward and be able to devote more to Alted.
Third phase.
And we
That's where it
will,
would go to Alta, because it was, okay.
Yeah,
So that's the
And-
assumption, but, you know.
right,
yes, and,
staying within
and
the
we
bond.
will, we've already started prompting them about the planning for Alted with the hope that when shovels are finished on this project, that they just move right over and start, so.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Is there any public comment?
There's no public comment.
Oh.
All right, I'll
So
entertain a motion.
I move to approve the Redwood Elementary School TK expansion and admin modernization LLB project.
Second,
I'll second.
perfect, roll call, please.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Munoz?
Yes.
And Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
All right, item 11.6, the Emergency Operation Plan MOU with the City of Fort Bragg.
All right, so as we discussed before, it seems that using the middle school library for our, for the EOC, for the city, will work out well. And so we did make one update today. Thank you, Scott, for catching that on item 2A. 2A3, I thought. 24-hour accessibility to Fort Bragg is what it said, and then
Yeah, we added middle
middle
school.
school, so
Yes.
that
Because
it wasn't ambiguous.
A little bit large.
Yes.
just wanted to.
Thought, well, it is the city. They kind of do have access to the city anytime. But other than that, the indemnification language is the standard indemnification language that we have from our lawyers.
Really? Because I thought that the first sentence, in parentheses, defend with counsel acceptable to the other party, is really vague. Like, you're indemnifying them, so you don't need counsel further along. So that sentence is weird to me.
It came from our council.
So that's
around-
good to know
yes,
that they gave you that
around
language.
MOU language.
Because I'm
or
thinking,
so-
well, what does that even mean? Because does that mean we need our own counsel? It's odd, because usually that would be it's separate line item, not in, when you're saying, hey, it's not on me, it's not on you.
Yeah.
We identify each other.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm glad it's been looked at by legal.
And I don't see that there would be much in the
issue.
way of real indemnification needed in this situation.
No.
I think, the reality being, if we're in this type of emergency,
We want their help.
we want their help. We want everything we can do to move forward.
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I just love that they're going to provide the plan and training as
Yes.
part of this. That's
Which is a lot.
Fantastic,
I mean, it's
yeah.
potentially, I guess that's the maximum. So I don't know how, that was my other question, is how, will there be I guess these safety meetings, there'll be a plan? Because they
Yes.
may not, obviously, they may not need that to sustain it that long, or how you keep
Yeah,
track of it.
I know that Captain O'Neill has a good idea of where we're going with this, and so while I haven't invited him to the meeting on Monday because I wanted to spend some time with our Healthy Kids Survey. I want to invite him to the follow-up meeting to that to kind of lay that out for our safety committee around what the kind of what the next steps are, give some examples. But it was really informative when they had I got to observe for about 15 or 20 minutes, and there's been an earthquake on the coast, and here are the things, and he's got situation cards that came out like every 10 minutes to people, and said, well, this happened, or you got this report that there's looting at Safeway, and then there's but they didn't necessarily go to the person. Like the looting didn't necessarily go to the police department that was there. It went to maybe somebody over here in this other office who got it on a call or a tweet or that kind of thing, and can that information get where it needs to go? So that's the exercise, is to figure out what channels of communication do you need, how well are they working, that sort of thing. So it was pretty well designed for that, and that's the level of intensity that he'll have for our staff when we run an exercise.
So we may use him on PD days.
We could. I am not sure if, in talking to him, I would want to run it with our admin staff and some of those staff before we brought in teachers and other instructional staff and got it to the large.
But my thought is more for them to understand once the new plan's done.
Oh, for sure.
For spend 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Just having everyone be aware of what the plan is.
Kind of what it is and what it looks. Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Are there any more questions? Is there any public comment?
There is no public comment.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the MOU between the City of Fort Bragg and Fort Bragg Unified.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, roll
You'd be all
call.
over that.
Trustee Munoz?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
And Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
All right. Item 11.7, out-of-state travel request.
All right, so we have some of our administrators are going to the AXA North State Conference that they hold in Reno coming up this next week. It's a professional development opportunity where they have speakers come in and that sort of thing. Why they hold it out of state, I'm not sure.
Kind of odd.
It's always been in Reno. It's for many years. It's just one of those weird things. So we have Mr. Triplett and Mrs. Vieira are planning to attend. Mrs. Vieira's travel will be covered through AXA because she's an officer within the group. So
That's why she gets there a day early. Yeah. More duties.
Okay.
So.
Any questions? Is there any public comment?
No, there is no public comment.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll
mo-
move to
yeah.
approve the out-of-state travel request.
No,
There's-
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
And Trustee Munoz?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Okay, moving on to item 12.1, Board of Trustees self-evaluation results for 2023. I understand just an opportunity for us to discuss
yes.
anything about the results we'd like to discuss.
Well, I don't think there's much for us to discuss here. We're just trying to be transparent. But
Mhm.
we did go through these in depth, just so the public knows, at our workshop. Or I shouldn't say in depth. We went over the ones that had,
The most disparity.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
that we were-
Which I was
The
going to look.
discrepancies.
Just,
and-
Yeah.
And we did do it a little differently this year where we answered each question two different ways. Once as we feel the board performed and once as we felt individually as a board member how we performed.
and I think, if I remember right, the setting direction is that we felt like we needed work on that and maybe even community leadership, maybe? There seemed like there was some areas there, because there are categories. And then there was further discussion on trying to continue working on the tool to make it more relevant to our planning for the next year. But it's all there for you to peruse.
Yes.
We have to do self-reflection too.
Yes.
All right, any other discussion, questions for this? Okay. Item 12.2, Board Policy Administrative Regulations regarding instructional materials.
And we brought these forward just, I believe it was at board request to be able to see kind of what the existing structures are. I know we're about to do some adoptions and things with our science materials, and so it's always good to kind of come back and take a look. The conflict of interest is kind of funny to me. I mean, it has to be in there by law, but you know, nobody in our town is working for publishing firms that are pushing things.
Right.
Though I say that, I guess in Willits there was a conflict of interest with a particular thing, so that I had to undo. So it does happen, but anyway, so I just wanted to open that up because with our upcoming reviews, if there's anything that we needed to discuss or anything that we needed to look at in the policy to update for that. So.
And there was, well, in 2016, there was big discussion with the curriculum for reading at one of the sites. And that was the whole thing, is that they wanted to make sure all the standards were met. And could they 100%, if every teacher's kind of taking, I mean, you'd have to have a certain curriculum, but it gets to be kind of dicey to know if that's going to be a question if the kids are getting, you know, data-based curriculum. And so that's kind of stated in these policies.
Mm-hmm. It is.
You have to be careful with what you're using.
Yes.
And I know in one of our discussions at one of the workshops, I just brought up the point when choosing these curriculums to look at how their performance is evaluated. Like, do these curriculum come with tools? We can really see how they're working with kids.
And I think that's like in the science curriculum, that's where our teachers are disappointed. The content is fine, but when actually looking at what are the activities that the kids are engaging in to demonstrate their knowledge, they're just not robust, really. So it's a little disappointing in that.
When I think when I made a site council, there was conversation about the Spanish books being old, and it does affect, I guess, teenagers if it's not relevant. If they have old pictures, they're from 1994, because people think, well, there's no change in learning, but I guess if the books are that outdated, so I don't know, since we're looking at curriculum, I don't know if those, because I know we've had Spanish at the high school level. So I'm not sure why, I guess that book can't go to middle school, that same, anyway, there is an old.
I know I've talked about that with.
But I guess Spanish is kind of new at middle school, really, I guess, for our district, potentially, so maybe that's why they're still.
Maybe so, but I know I have had that conversation with Mrs. Vieira just to say, maybe we should update those texts.
Because that's the only one that stood out to me, that was like, wow, 1994.
Yeah. Might still have references to CD players and phone booths and things like that.
Calling cards.
Yes.
But you know what? My son just took Spanish to whatever at the college, and there's still even the college books that you're paying for.
Because they're so expensive.
It still has references of old things.
Yes. Yeah. So.
And I can't. This document won't load, but the rubric that it keeps looping me around. But the rubric that we've seen the teachers fill out.
Yes.
I don't know if we should try to link that or review.
Okay.
If that's part of our.
We can share that with you for sure. Yeah, just so you know what the.
Because we have gotten those when
they're filled out, yeah. But I'm wondering if they should be tied more directly to.
Like as an exhibit in the policy or something.
Well, each area of that's being specified in the policy to follow, that evaluation chart is
matching.
I'm
just thinking that.
Like, who created the rubric and when has it been updated?
Yeah.
I have not.
Yeah,
updated
where did it
that,
come
no,
from?
For sure. So,
it's pretty. It's at least the 8 years I've been on the board, so that's
same.
that long, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I was gonna say it's probably a decade old at least.
And the one thing I know there was the only controversy during my tenure on the board was about the the math books, I think one of my first or second years. And I think one of the things that if we want to include that in the policy, is that more longitudinal people are involved, meaning, so
Site to
that
site.
I worry a little bit about a very small department and only the people that are teaching that subject at that time have the input. And, like, for example, even the science for the elementary, are the upper grades being included? I mean, they're not, of course, teaching it every day, but just looking at how that feeds into, and I know that was an issue with the math, because the high school really wanted a certain math, but it didn't. I think the elementary and middle school. Anyway, now that we're doing much better at working together as a district and not in silos, that how that curriculum will then feed into. I'm even thinking of that for the reading program. It does that. Anyway, if it's just a more cohesive group, because I know we've gotten away from when, teachers would pick the novels that they liked, not necessarily what was a cross-section of materials for students. But I still think people may be more drawn to a certain type of curriculum versus, I don't know, I just think more
Lenses on it.
yes,
Yeah.
more educators looking at it might be good too, just in the, because it is a lot of money and then we're gonna be stuck with it for a while. So if, this group of teachers is, maybe they're really into more physical science than, I'm trying to use an example, sorry, physical science than
Earth.
Say life science. Or
Thank you.
yes.
Life science. It's too late, I can't. So, and anyway, to make sure that it's all, I don't know if I'm making sense at
No,
this point, but.
it makes sense. And what I'll say with the elementary science adoption, we did bring in MCOE, who has really done this with some other places to help, because we were hitting that frustration point with the process. They didn't have a lot of nice things to say about any of it either. So it's not just us frustration. I think this is kind of universal out there in California right now, and maybe in.
Which is sad.
It really is,
Well,
because
maybe
there's so much
science
cool
wasn't a
stuff.
good example, but
Well,
Science
and
is
I'm
not a
hung
good
up on
example.
science right now because that's what's
That's your-
in the
yes,
forefront of my
that's your world
mind
right now.
right now. So.
But since we are trying to be more policy and focused, that if that's something that we're really wanting to look at is tightening up our policies, then maybe that's something to look at, is the rubric, and maybe steal some. Dinah's really good at finding other school districts' things to borrow. And then, we could put that in line with our policy, and then we would be doing something. Yeah.
So like vertical integration.
Yes, and and aligning what we want, it's not just filling out the piece of paper to send it to
Getting
the
it
board,
done,
but
yeah.
it's
Checking the
it's
box.
meaningful, and it sets a framework for what,
The best of the worst.
yeah.
Sometimes.
The current situation, it sounds like, which I think we're also running into that with the reading program at elementary too, is that,
They're not in love with the
Right.
current
so.
adoption, so.
Is that the iReady or is that?
No, that's the benchmark is
the benchmark, yeah.
what we have, and it was really good when it came out, but it's kind of hit that point in its lifespan where it hasn't kept up with kind of science of reading and the things that we've heard come out that way. So I have talked to some teachers about piloting next year an ELA curriculum just to see if there's an interest there, and I think certainly at Redwood there is.
So taking a look at the rubric, would that be an ADCO
Yes. So I'll
or something?
first I'll do some analysis on it and see how closely our current rubric is to our policy. If it's not close at all, I'm just going to reach out to other districts and say, what do you have? And let's start from their scratch as opposed to what we have. Though I think ours isn't far off, but it still might need to be updated a good bit. So. All right.
Okay, sorry, a second. Okay, 12.3, Board Review of First Amendment Rights of Board of Trustees. This is just an opportunity to discuss and reflect on the presentation we got from council at the beginning of the meeting.
just want to comment how lucky we are in this town that we haven't had to deal with a lot of, even though, you know, I've been involved in 2 elections, it still wasn't, I mean.
Now you don't need to have 2 platforms.
True, but I just mean, we haven't gotten in any
Troubles.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah, we don't have people that are super active on social media and.
Well, because the Brown Act, I mean, because it still doesn't prevent, so it's too risky to communicate. And what she didn't touch on, which is on, there are 2 other presentations that really loop into it, is that it was really what was happening, if it sticks. Our First Amendment rights were being taken that we weren't able to talk about. But you can definitely push out, like if the board, the district's Facebook, and you want to push it out, you can do that now without feeling like you're whatever, because you're not meeting those 2 thresholds. But we still, each of us can't go, yeah, thumbs up, Kathy, and we all thumbs up. Well, then we've just violated that. And then the other part that they didn't give kudos is that F3 was a big part of writing and getting all of this. So it's pretty exciting to have council there. And they do have a lot of offerings. So I think if we do, hopefully we don't end up with, we will end up potentially 3 new members, or hopefully we retain, but that would be helpful to have, like a Brown Act. If you've got someone brand new on the board, they could probably do it pretty concisely, because if you hear it, might be easier to understand than, because it only takes 1 member to not understand the Brown Act, and then now it's hard to go back once you've crossed that line. So.
And nothing's ever deleted for.
Exactly. It's like, they say it's like squishing out toothpaste. You can't fit it back in. Once it's out, it's out.
Does the school board have to social archive anything? So Parent Square, you reserve that for permanent record? Is that a thing? I know the city does.
No, only in certain situations.
Oh, you mean like public comment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, public comment we do.
Yeah.
But not on social media.
Because you have comments on it open, or do you close them?
I think we keep it closed.
Keep it, because some things people just keep it. That was how people keep me
Right.
out of trouble. Is they just didn't allow any comments.
The only way people can comment is if we share something in the community that is open for comment.
Gotcha.
And so then we're making comments,
Mhm.
but our stuff is set up that way.
And we don't have any admin, because that kind of goes with admin, because they have, I don't know, there's no board policy on it, but they don't have social media, and they could be subject to some of this as
Right.
well,
And-
or you.
and
but
we've
not
had
as much.
conversations that.
Yeah, we've never had that issue.
No.
Knock on wood, yeah.
You know, because we've had conversations about employees and their speech, and saying, as long as they're not saying, as a Fort Bragg Unified School District employee.
Right,
you know,
gotcha.
And
Yeah.
speaking in that way, then they can generally have what they want on their social media pages and things. So.
And I did look at our policy, and there is one. So you, Scott, have to be careful, because you do have the authority according to one of our policies. So you've meet that first prong, because we have a policy that says that. But then you have the disclaimer you can cover, and you also wouldn't say that you're speaking on behalf of the district. But you really do have exposure. I mean, if you were reckless. Yeah, I'm not worried about you, but yeah, if you started, getting on your soapbox, you've met the 2 prongs.
Yes.
Thank you.
And it's not much of a worry with me either. Like, you might see some pictures of my family on there. I don't even like other people's stuff.
Yeah.
It's just.
Same here, not there.
Yeah.
Will F3 provide us gut bylaws or policies to update to our own, or do we have to go and update our policy?
I kind of think that she was going to wait to see what was going to happen with the Ninth Circuit to see if anything altered. But CSBA is going to, we pay dues with them. They're going to provide something. But I don't think anything that we have in our policy is too reckless.
No.
So, but we could change it where, I don't know. I don't think there's an issue.
No. And F3 is working directly with CSBA on this particular one. So
Yeah.
whatever comes out,
They got us covered.
they got us covered. So.
We're double covered. Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to 13.1 board reports. If anyone would like to go first? Anyone have anything to report?
I didn't bring my calendar, but I did, it's fresh in my mind because I did interviews at Alt Ed yesterday, and that was really fun. It's super difficult to get there during the workday, but I'm always glad when I'm there, they take it very seriously, and I know it's super helpful. And I hope to go to martial arts another Friday to just to kind of compare how it's going, because I went to the first one at middle school. So.
I was invited to coffee with the principal tomorrow with Miss Lundy, and I'm excited to hear the Redwood opening.
Yeah. Awesome.
It's so fun.
It is fun.
Yeah, it's very sweet.
I went to the high school site council, and I just want to get a shout out to the work they're doing there. As a former counselor and parent, I was very happy to hear that they are, as Bruce was talking about the A through Gs, they are not letting students out of classes anymore without having a contact with their parent. And that makes me very happy that the kids are not able to make those choices without a serious discussion.
Gotcha.
Because and my philosophy was always, you can always go, you can get to the end, you can always have options, but if you make certain choices when you think you know everything as a teenager, it has severe consequences. So they're doing lots of great things and implementing a lot of great policies, and just kudos for the work that they're doing up there. And it was great to have them share that out. And Ben, no, I forgot his name.
Shapiro. Right?
Shiro. Ben Shiro. He came and presented this project, and it was, again, I'm back to my great things are happening because kids are excited about stuff, and they're, thinking outside the box, and he's on a quest to fix a problem he sees at the high school. And anyway, it was great to be to hear from him too.
Yes,
So.
I get to hear that tomorrow.
Oh.
So
It's
Going to leadership class.
he's very persuasive, and he's got. I mean, his foundation is good. There's some quirks, with logistics, but anyway, it's exciting to see kids doing some great things.
Yeah, I don't have my calendar either. I don't have much,
Yeah,
but
I'm sure I'm missing something.
I know. I look forward to the interviews tomorrow. So
Awesome. Thank
that's
you.
at 1.
Yes.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so as far as advanced planning. Oh, yeah.
No, I shared.
Oh,
Let them do
yeah.
the
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you still see the cues tomorrow?
So advanced planning, future board meetings. I know we have a workshop scheduled for May 6th on governance core.
Yes.
So just any help with the agenda, any topics you'd like to specifically discuss on there. It's at 4 o'clock. I think we're slating 1 to 2 hours.
Yeah, I think in speaking with Deborah, she said she thought it'd be roughly an hour, but plan 90 minutes just in case the discussion goes a little longer.
So is she setting up the agenda?
I think it'll just generally be an open discussion, and I'll ask her to send over specifics that she wants.
Okay, so I would just say, send Joe or I or both of us
Okay.
anything specific you'd like to address there.
And we're
Bring
meeting
our
here,
notes.
but she's
She'll
going to
be-
be on. Okay.
Yes.
So, yeah, we'll all be here. Okay.
And then, in looking at the agenda setting calendar, it looks like we may have to switch the June 20th meeting, right? Because you said you'll be out of town.
I won't be for the meeting, but I can be here for.
Okay.
I'll
Just
be here
on-
the June 10th. I mean,
Okay.
for that. Yeah.
Okay, so we don't have to do anything there. Is there any other future board meeting? I mean, we'll go through the list here.
So do we know, so I guess we're not quite there yet, because the next meeting's May 9th.
Right.
I was just wondering, Redwood and Middle School open house, if they have
Okay.
those out yet.
And also, I know also May 10th is Career Day?
Yeah,
Right.
Friday. It's like 9 to 12
Yeah.
or something.
I'm blocked off most of the day. Okay. So the DLAC meeting on April 25th, the middle school, you able to attend?
Let's see what date, like I said, I don't have.
It says here 5:30.
Now, I got a flyer at my place of business thanking us, but on the literacy night, it said, if you have a family, please, are they over people coming, like, I mean, I know it's a super popular event, so I didn't want to go if it, like, is tight on space.
Oh, I don't think it's so much about space. I think it's when we had families with large families
Resources,
come in, it's the resources in the classroom, the actual hands-on pieces that they're doing is
Okay, so us snooping around watching is,
be just
okay.
Yeah, because I don't think I was able to go last year, but I've always, like, I've gone to most, and it's super easy for one person to just, it's
Yeah.
kind of like an open house, like you're just looking at stations and
it's just-
it's super fun.
just the
to watch.
stations themselves, the amount of
Gotcha.
resource
Yeah.
that they have for the kiddos is
Perfect.
somewhat limited, so.
So the 25th, I can't go.
I might be able to, but I'm gonna double check.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I will not be able to attend on the 25th. I'll be out of town. so.
I'll be out of town as well.
Though I do know the DLAC on the 25th, I believe, is they're working on their letter to the board
Oh.
that they
Oh.
always present. So that's the major topic for them. So
So I wonder if we should go to that one or not.
Yeah, I know.
I know it's kind of hard.
Yeah, that one's, I mean, normally they're pushing out some information for their families, so it's informative, but that one might not be,
Okay.
they might not be able to have as candid or conversations potentially.
All right.
Well, I do know that webinar for CSBA on the Supreme Court decision, and then F3 had one too. You can go onto their website. So if you want more information on that, I know I did that between the last two meetings, along with I know I went to a webinar for the budget and whatnot, but it's always like the same fluff talk. So.
So also on this list is Staff Appreciation Week, May 13th through 17th. So,
Yes.
and then normally
I have a sticky note here, because I think.
I have something that, I
we've got
need
it.
to decide, because our hearts are big and our budget is not as big as our hearts. So we need to, we really want to do something that's, so anyway, I've got a couple ideas. So we'll just have to see if it'll work.
Also, May 17th is our band concert at Cotton Auditorium. So we'll have our beginning, our intermediate, and our high school band performing that night. So,
Oh, it's in there, good.
yeah, I think it's on the calendar. It's just
It
it
is.
didn't make it into, because it's technically after our next board meeting, but still,
Yeah, I was thinking about this calendar and trying to standardize how
Mhm.
far ahead we go. And I know, one thought I had was to go from the current meeting date through the end of the following month.
okay.
So I don't know if that's too
Give
much.
basically 6 weeks of
Yeah, I mean, that way
advance
it's,
notice. Okay.
we
A little
know
bit
it.
ahead.
Yeah, a
makes
little bit
sense.
ahead.
Right, especially this time of year when
Yes.
things are coming fast and furious. So
So I don't know if you can make a note of that. Does anyone object to that? Is that,
Mm-mm.
okay. Maybe in the summer, we can go a little bit further, because there's
Sure.
nothing for our June meeting going a little further, but,
Oh, band concert's 5:30.
all right, is there anything else for housekeeping or advanced planning? All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn at
There's-
8:45.
Second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you